And we are live. Hi, everybody. Um, I think most of you would know me. Today we have gathered here, and I'll be introducing my other guests briefly. Um, Today we are gathered here to discuss the movie Animal that we all saw or didn't see. We'll get to know that as well. But we want to discuss the movie in depth, and it's a bunch of friends who got together. We had some strong opinions that we were sharing in our own private WhatsApp groups, and we thought this has a lot of potential and content to do a YouTube live. So that's what we're doing. I'll bring in my guests in one by one. First, let me add my friend Neeraj Hasija. Joining us is Neeraj Hasija. Hi, Neeraj.
Sorry, I'm still having my breakfast.
That's okay. Neeraj has different hours than us. He works in a different time zone. But thank you, Neeraj, for joining us. And I know we have been discussing this movie in our WhatsApp group for a while. So I thought, what a better platform than uh, YouTube to do this live. And we'll share the link with a few of our friends who might be interested in listening to this as well. All right. Let me now bring in uh, our second speaker slash guest, Himanshu. Himanshu, you're live. Can you hear
Thank
us?
you.
Yes.
And please highlight the fact that I'm a neutral
Of
audience
course.
here, while you play
Yeah.
the role of both the host and what I can gather from the conversations that slightly admiring of the movie. I don't know. You
I
can
mean,
you can
I'll share my opinion as we go along.
yeah, yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, all right. I think so. We have the three of us, and in case somebody else wishes to
Yeah.
join the live stream,
Can we see the stats? Like how many millions have we hit?
right now I don't see anybody.
Okay, that's good. That's good. We
But
can use this as a
how that is how
yeah,
things
I
go.
think.
All
Yes,
right.
yes.
So what is happening is while we do this conversation, it's also being streamed live on YouTube. We are using a separate platform to do this. And the YouTube comes with slight lag. So, in case anyone's listening, if you have any comments, please put it on the chat and then we'll respond to it as we go along. Alrighty then. Okay, so firstly, a quick introduction to the topic. We are discussing Animal, the movie, directed by Sandeep Reddy Vanga, starring Ranbir Kapoor, Anil Kapoor, Rashmika Mandana, Bobby Deol, and a host of other actors that we know and love. The movie opened on 1st December, and commercially speaking, the movie has been a super hit. It's raked up crazy numbers in the box office, both locally and globally. Um, but we'll leave that aside for a moment. The commercial success of
So what are the
the movie.
numbers like?
As far as I last checked, at the end of day 7, it had crossed 500 crores globally, and in India, it was somewhere in the range of 600 crore. Yeah, it's crossed 600 crores as of yesterday, I think. And this weekend, it's going to see a major bump. But the movie has done consistently well, not just in the first weekend of its release, but also across the week, registering double-digit numbers like 40 crores, 30 crores, 25
Wow.
crores, 20 crores across the weekdays. So the numbers are fantastic. Uh, and we should
And
mention
this is
here that the
just
movie,
in 7 days.
7 days, yes, 7 days globally, 600 crores. This weekend is going to be pretty big, and the next two
Yeah.
big releases aren't coming in for another week or so.
Hmm.
So it has got a clear, uh, you know, playing
Yep.
field to make more money. That is all right, but we'll come to the commercials of the movie aside or later. What also is important is to mention that the movie is A-rated, so
Hmm.
it's restricted in its audience. It's not for everybody, and the disclaimers that were given in the you know, release videos and interviews of the stars and the director, they said, don't go and watch it. It's not for everybody. If you get easily triggered, if you are very sensitive, don't watch this movie. So a lot of disclaimers had been thrown around, and given the past record of the same director, Sandeep Reddy Vanga's movies, Arjun Reddy, as well as Kabir Singh, which was a remake of the earlier one, that was also a very polarizing film. So, yeah, with that, let's just first go around the room. And I know there are just two of us apart from Himanshu, who's not seen the movie yet. Uh, Himanshu, let me go to Himanshu first because I know a large part of Neeraj's viewpoint, but we want to hear it from him in detail. Himanshu, you haven't seen the movie. Why haven't you seen the movie?
I was traveling, and then since I've come back, there has been a lot of work. And we decided to have this podcast today. And today, so parallelly, if my eyeballs are rotating here and there, I might be adding a few lines to some decks. So yeah,
That's fine.
that's what it is. I'm busy, but yeah, I mean, scrolling through Instagram, I can see what you guys have been talking about, and a lot of people are talking about a same thing and trying to, some of them of course are trying to ride the wave also, some of those so-called influencers, and then either taking a stand or making memes about it. So yeah, I get what the excitement is all about.
Okay, so from popular media, what's been your perspective or opinion about the movie without seeing it so far?
So yes, I think you used the right word, polarizing. And I just saw, like I think half an hour back, that the Venn diagram of people who defend animal and people who
Mhm.
you should be avoiding is a circle. That's what a female uh,
Okay,
influencer, right? So, and she got a lot of hate, and she got a lot of love also. And some of the people were like, wow, you understand Venn diagrams, being a girl. So, like,
okay,
and that was love, by the way. So, and yes, there were some who were like hating her, and then she was, of
okay,
course, raking in on the engagement that she's getting, because she never really comes on my feed, and I could see her for the first time. So she's definitely getting some gains out of it. So yes, that is one part, and then the other is your typical Satish Ray and your the comedian Nishant Talwar, who are
okay.
they are admiring it, I would say. I mean,
Hmm.
their point of view was that bhai matlab fat gayi and all that, matlab maza hi aa
Hmm.
gaya. So
Yeah, yeah. I think the reaction to the movie has been more entertaining than the movie in a way, I would say. Uh, but I've also been scrolling through a number of reviews. Obviously, after watching the movie, initially I heard the initial feedback, and it was very, either this or that. Somebody loved it, somebody hated it. I went and watched it because I was getting massive FOMO, uh, and I saw it. Then I came back and sort of went through, an enormous amount of reviews, both written as well as YouTube videos by comedians, film critics, random people, and it's been very interesting to see and understand what their views are about this movie. But
yeah.
we'll discuss the reaction as well. Now, finally, coming over to Neeraj, I hope he's finished his breakfast, lunch, whatever he's
Yep, yep.
have choosing to have right now. So, Neeraj, you watched the movie, I believe, over the weekend, last
Last
week or
Monday. Last Monday, yes.
okay, okay. So,
Yep.
in a nutshell, because we'll go deep into the movie, tell us about your initial reaction to the movie.
So I want to get a lot of preconceived, notions out of the way. And when I say
Okay.
preconceived, they are because of various conversations I've been having with friends over WhatsApp groups, not just the one that we have, but other groups as well. And I really like your statement which says, the reaction to the movie has been more entertaining than the movie itself, right? Uh, and I will come to why I say that. I will explain. I will break it down step by step
Hmm.
because I'm not a huge movie buff, but I think I've seen enough movies, right? I see a lot of good directors, and I've spent time with Himanshu here and with a lot of other people who are involved with, you know, performing arts, right? You've delved yourself in it, Subit, as well, right? I try to be, I try to understand movies from different perspectives as well, right? The preconceived notion is that if you're a feminist, you hate this movie, right?
Mhm.
Which I've seen in a lot of places. And if you're, um, you know, from a from a masculine perspective, if you're like an open-minded person, you will love this movie, right? That is the kind
Hmm.
of polarization that you're referring to, right? I don't think I believe in either of those narratives, although I support one of them more than the other, right? I don't think this movie, in terms of being feminist or not, is as polarizing if you really get into the detail as
Hmm.
the last movie of this director, right?
Hmm.
I believe it's been like a great marketing event, right? The director himself, and to quote a good friend from another WhatsApp group, the director himself came out after Kabir Singh, was really offended by how everyone called it misogynistic.
Mhm.
And I want to make my opinion clear. I think Kabir Singh was heavily misogynistic, right? There is no two ways about it. Anyone who thinks it was in a gray area, I believe, needs to educate themselves, right? And that is my strong opinion on Kabir Singh, not anime.
Okay. Mhm.
The director himself came out and said, "I want to make a movie to offend those who got triggered by Kabir Singh." Right now, my
Okay.
reading of that is that if you get triggered by critics yourself, and
Mhm.
then you are kind of judging people before even writing a movie, and then writing it, to take revenge on people who kind of criticized your movie, then I don't see it as a well-intended movie in itself, right? However, I am willing to keep that aside. If I was not
Hmm.
willing to keep that aside, I would not have gone for this movie with an open mind, right? Another
Okay.
reason I went for this movie with an open mind was that
And you had read this before, like going for the movie, this entire scoop
other
on
the
intention of.
director's thing, no, but
I think the
uh,
Kabir Singh thing was like 4 5 years ago, and it created again a
No,
lot
no.
of
I mean the point
reaction.
that now that people are triggered, I think I'm gonna use this as the new project will
no,
be like a.
the director's opinion I hadn't read before, but
I think
generally,
there was a quote. I think there was a quote in. I think if I'm not wrong, one of the interviews post Kabir Singh was with Anupama Chopra and Sandeep Reddy Vanga, and it was a 30-minute long
Hmm, hmm.
discussion. Anupama said, there's so much toxicity, misogyny in the movie. Sandeep disagreed with most of the things. Uh, Towards the end of that interview, when they were closing that, and this I remember because this has been reused in as a clip in multiple other reviews that I saw. Anupama said, "Hope your next movie is a little less violent." And Sandeep ends it with saying, "I don't think they know what violence is. I will show them what violence is in my next movie."
God.
Right. So that's how he ended the interview. So yeah, Neeraj is, I would say, partly correct in the sense that he wanted to show people what he's capable of doing and about what people were criticizing in his previous work. I have a few disagreements, which I will come to, but let Neeraj complete his
Yeah, yeah.
first reaction to the movie. Yeah.
right. So I am willing to let go of that, right? Another reason I'm willing to let go of that is because I have admired Ranbir Kapoor as one of the few genuine stars in Bollywood who can act, right? I have
Sure.
zero respect for a lot of other big stars uh, within for their acting capabilities, or their acting capabilities as they remain now, right? Some of them were huge stars in the
Are we
past,
taking names? We are not taking names.
and I mean, there's no point. Literally everyone else is a part of that,
Okay.
band, right? Uh, to And Ranbir Kapoor, apart from being a good actor, has also chosen movies with a very different kind of a subject before. So on the one hand, I respect him for delving into something which is very far away from what he has done in the past, right? Uh, and then letting himself be with the whatever the director wanted him to be, right? So I'm okay with
Sure.
that. And that's why that was one of the reasons I wanted to watch the movie. It had been well publicized. The music is great. We can get that out of the way, right? I think that's unanimous. That's a unanimous reaction that the music is great, and
Okay.
that was for Kabir Singh as well, right? So if you have to praise Sandeep Reddy Vanga, you can say that. Uh, I know there will still be people who disagree, but uh, a majority of the people agreed that Kabir Singh's music was, very well knit into the movie as well, and so is Animals, right? It also helps further the story a little bit, uh, you know, in Kabir Singh as well, and here, right? So that is one thing that I will give to the director. Now, the problem for me when I judge a movie, right? There are
Hmm.
three or four parts to it, right? There's intention, there is the narrative, and then there is the execution of the movie, right? Sometimes even if just the execution is good, you're like, yeah, it was a fine movie, right? I have a problem with the narrative that was created with Animal before, because you were basically saying
Hmm.
that, and to be honest, I wasn't following the narrative before I saw the movie, right? This is something that I have to answer Himanshu's question. The narrative is that I will show people, you know, what violence and misogyny can be, right? I can still align with the idea that the movie was not as misogynistic as Kabir Singh. The character was, right? And you
Okay.
can have artistic freedom to write a character that is heavily misogynistic, right? That is fine,
Okay.
right? There are all kinds of people that exist, and you're showing an extremely violent psychopath. That is fine. The narrative was a problem. The intent I just clarified was a problem, but not problems enough to completely you know wipe out the whatever the marketing machinery that was behind it. So everyone's going for this movie, right? That's why the movie is going to make big bucks. That's why so many movies in the past with superstars, very 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 ordinary movies or pathetic movies, have
Hmm.
made big, right? I generally don't enjoy, even Karan Johar type of dramas, but I went for a movie recently by Dharma Productions, and I enjoyed the movie. Right? It was a fun 3 hours. I don't have to put my brains to use. I don't have to critically evaluate every movie. It's the stage that I've come to in life that there was a time when I would never even watch those kind of movies, but now I'm like, fine, it's a fun 3 hours. It's a good time pass. I'll watch it. It's for the general public's entertainment. They may or may not be cinephiles, but it's fine. Every movie doesn't have to be like a Nolan movie, right?
Sure.
The problem that I have been debating, because everyone can have their own opinions about other things, and even though I have my strong or weak opinions about some things, I didn't really want to get into the political arguments with a lot of people because of how polarized the world is in general, and not just the reviews to this movie right now, right? But what I could not avoid was how horrible the execution of the movie itself was as well, and people didn't see it, right?
Okay.
So for the benefit of Himanshu here, right, who hasn't seen the movie, do you mind if we do like some spoilers and run through?
Yeah, yeah. I think spoiler
Yeah,
alert
yeah. I think
has been
I'm
given.
almost 60-70% movie is clear to me, in fact.
Okay.
So I mean, so Neeraj, okay. So before we get into the spoiler part of it and give a brief
No,
synopsis
but
of
I think
this
and because I think the three-part intention narration, I totally
and
get that.
execution.
Execution, I think we did not hear him out. And
Yeah. So he said the
um,
execution was poor, and that's where we were going into.
yeah,
Before I go into the quick synopsis of the movie, Neeraj, and thanks for sharing the background of your mindset with which you went to watch this particular movie. Um, One question here: how important is the intention of the director, or the narrative that is there in popular media, or the person who's behind the movie himself or herself, versus the actual product that is on screen, the execution part of it, right? I mean, let's say there are certain polarizing directors in India and elsewhere as well, who intentionally rile up the audience, who intentionally provoke the audience. They will take one point of view, and obviously the other side gets offended. They intentionally do it. But do we judge the person? Do we judge their intention? Or do we judge it purely basis what is that we see on screen? And whether that is good cinema, whether that is entertaining, whether that is art, which we will talk about. But yeah, so how important is the execution versus the all the other stuff that is there in the background?
So
And Himanshu, you can feel as well. Yeah. Neeraj, go ahead.
my opinion on that is that it is important, but I also do believe, right? And I think we've spoken about that in the past, that you have to be able to separate the art from the artist while critically
Sure.
reviewing.
Otherwise, we'd stop following so many other,
I mean,
artists who
yeah,
we love. Yeah.
unfortunate. Yeah, it's unfortunate that in the world, my favorite comedian for from the past 20 years is Louis C.K., who was a
Sure.
major, a problematic person who came out in the Me Too movement, for example.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, I'm not gonna rush to buy flight tickets and comedy tickets to see Louis C.K. anytime soon, but I will also not be inauthentic and say that I never enjoyed his comedy, because I actually still love his comedy. Old videos that keep popping up on my timeline, I still see them and I still share them, right? So unfortunately, the world is in a place where, um, although you might be offended, right? Although you might not like that artist anymore, but if you are critically reviewing it with friends or with people or if you're doing a live stream, you have to be able
Sure.
to come up with logical arguments. And that's when I did tell you that you have to keep your feelings aside for this particular stream, and you have to be able to critically review it. And that is the reason I actually want to get into execution first, because if the execution is bad along with the intention and the
Mm.
narrative, when I say, I didn't mean the narration of the movie, I meant the narrative built into the movie in the marketing
Yeah. Yeah.
machinery.
Yeah. Yeah.
If the execution is also bad, then what are you even debating?
Okay.
Right?
So if you're going into the movie itself, so for Himanshu's benefit, and Neeraj, just because I've also seen it a week back, um, I'll do a very quick overview of the movie. I'll not try to give any spoilers. Most of it is in the trailers anyway. Uh, Movie starts with a young Ranbir Kapoor. I mean, it starts with an older Ranbir Kapoor, but let's move away from that. The movie starts with a young Ranbir Kapoor looking for his missing father. Father is absent, busy, etc., etc., and the child is left without father's attention, but he really looks up to him. All that is in the trailer. Uh, then from there, cut to an adult young Ranbir Kapoor who goes to a friend's wedding, has a few dialogues with his crush, Rashmika. All of that happens. That scene is there with where we'll talk about some dialogues which have triggered people as well. Uh, then cut to uh, Ranbir Kapoor at his father's 60th birthday, I guess that's what it was. And there's a family dynamic playing. He has two sisters. He doesn't like his brother in law. They get into some kind of verbal arguments. He has to apologize. Things start to get better, but then they get worse. In the meantime, there's also a flashback to college going or school going Ranbir Kapoor, where he showed his first violence or violent trait when his sister was Eve teased in college. He takes a gun to the college, fires in the classroom, runs over the guys who teased his
An
sister, etc.,
AK-47,
etc. AK-47, and then he comes
the
and
school
gets a
kid.
thrashing from his father. That's what made him go to the boarding school. And the present is when he's come back from the boarding school to meet his friend and his school time crush, etc. The scene that particular segment ends with Anil Kapoor asking him to leave because he got into a fight with his brother-in-law, who's the heir apparent to the throne of the empire. His father is a biggest industrialist, whatever.
The
And then
richest person in the country is what they've said.
yeah, richest person in the country. That's what they say. At this point, when he's about to leave, Rashmika comes back. She breaks off her engagement. comes with Ranbir Kapoor. They go to take their father's blessing. Father ignores them. They fly to wherever, US, and then there are a couple of dance and their marriage
Oh no, I
sequence.
mean you can't skip the most ridiculous
Which
parts.
one? Which one? Which one?
Okay, so at this stage when they're running away from the house, and there's a whole music video that's been
They take the
released by
flight, right? They take the private plane and all of that.
you take a private plane. Fine, you're the richest person in the country. You have a private plane to yourself, but then you fly the plane, and you know. Uh, Subil, it's great that you're a great storyteller, but unfortunately, this movie is not. The story hasn't been told
And I'm just
so.
giving a brief outline. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Go ahead. Go ahead.
but it was not so coherent, right? It wasn't tied up well, and right. So in this scene, the one of the most ridiculous things about the movie, and it's not a fantasy movie, right? They haven't created a fantasy. It's not something where the character arcs have been built to perfection. They have been cut like crazy. And I'm a huge
Hmm.
Tarantino fan. All Sandeep Reddy Vanga fans, the new breed that has come out of people, they are saying, "Oh, you're okay with Tarantino doing this bloodshed and this violence, but you're not okay with an Indian director doing it." It's funny because uh, I've seen all Tarantino movies, like literally all of them, right? And I'm a big fan. And that kind of violence and that kind of sexual scenes, they don't trigger me, right? But they're executed well. They're executed well in the sense that there's always a character arc that's leading up to these incidents or scenes or after. Throughout the movie, you would keep hoping that somewhere they would justify these character arcs, right? Not just with Ranbir Kapoor, but with all the actors, right? With Anil Kapoor, with Rashmika, with even like they didn't show anything of Bobby there. Anyway, so we'll come to that. The most ridiculous part of the movie, and I say most ridiculous, is because it's the one that's out in the media already because they've released the video, but there are even more ridiculous parts. Ranbir, with his the girlfriend that he is eloping with, who was just broken off her engagement over nothing, right? He just says, "Oh, you should marry me," and she says, "Okay, sure."
So
Right?
there's this
That is,
whole alpha dialogue thing which we'll come to, defining an alpha and
yeah. I
everything.
mean, just by calling something alpha, you can't. Alpha is, it comes from the animal kingdom, the word and the behavior. Just because someone is violent and a psychopath doesn't mean they're alpha, right? In the civilized world, anyway. But coming to that, in the scene, they get onto a plane. They're both putting on the headphones like they're both flying the plane. Fine. One could be a pilot, one could be a co-pilot. Then they suddenly go into a sexual scene, and the plane, and it's not one of those huge, you know,
Autopilot, dude. What are you saying?
AC-80s that will fly at like 20,000 feet and will be on autopilot above the clouds. This is flying like near the hills and all, right? It's not like very high above the ground. You could even see the ground, right? They've shown that in shots. I'm not making it up. And they put the plane on autopilot. They go into a sexual scene. Fine. That could have lasted for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 20 minutes. I don't know, like, 2 days.
Depends on his abilities,
And then
of
they,
course.
they, they, they go to sleep and the plane is flying, right? And then the next cut that they show is that Ranbir is casually brushing his teeth and, have has one hand on the, whatever the driving stick of the plane is called. And Rashmika comes out of the washroom in a fully draped sari, right? Of course, they want to show the, and they're also talking to each other. They're saying they're both virgins, right? Which is so ridiculous because to appease one section of the society, you always want to show that a character, regardless of what it is the value statement that you're trying to show that they're virgins. Of course, they're not virgins, right? Ranbir Kapoor in a psychopath all of his life, the richest person in the country. He's been in America forever, right? He's come back to this girlfriend, not even a girlfriend, never dated, right? This girl used to call him Bhaiya because he is her brother's best friend. And then he comes back from the US and he's like, hey, she's always called me Bhaiya because her Masi insisted. Because none of the other friends were called Bhaiya because I was the only one who would be, who would kind of steal her away, take her away, right? Very, very ridiculous portions, very ridiculous things happening. And then the plane starts to go down. He just like, casually goes, pulls it up, right?
And then
I
you
mean,
cut.
go to sleep again. Like they enter the plane, there are no seats there. There's a mattress laid down for them, and then they land somewhere in the hills, and there's a bed out in the open, and they're still talking about how people will see or not see. I mean, they're trying to show psychopaths. They're trying to show extremism. They're trying to show animalistic
But
behavior. But, but
Neeraj,
they never forget to mention that they're fucking virgins. Why? Why?
no, I think that is. I mean, for me, that part was not problematic or not. I mean,
It's poor
stupid
execution.
or weird. See, I mean, you have to
What
suspend
is this
your
character
dis.
arc? How is this a
So that is
character?
that is what I'm coming to. So okay. So just to take Himanshu back, so he starts off neglected, has some violent streaks, shows it in a couple of places in his young adulthood, finds the girl, goes away with the girl to US. Till then, he has shown that he believes in his mind he's alpha, he's the heir to the throne, but his father doesn't give him that respect.
They haven't shown
But
it well. That's the problem. I mean, it won't
sure,
come
sure.
out.
I mean, I'll take
Yeah.
that. So what happens? Just to quickly go through the story, and then we'll come to each of these parts that Neeraj was referring to, and what is the silent message or values that the director is trying to put in our minds. So the plane flies away. It cuts. An older Ranbir, like in sort of in his mid 30s, with full bearded look, he comes back. His father has just been shot. He's come back from the US to look at his father, how he is, gets into some kind of, understands there's something off about his father getting shot. The brother-in-law is acting a little dicey. He comes over, takes charge, assures the family of the plant workers and everybody, takes care of his father, uh, brings in a body double to protect his father, all of that. His father is recovering, father is happy to see him. And then from there, oh, before he even shows that, they do a complete mass murder scene where they show that Ranbir goes and kills the brother-in-law in public view in an open auditorium where there are people, right? And that's glorified in a manner with music, all of that. Brother-in-law is killed. Why was the brother-in-law killed? They show it in a flashback that they found out that the brother-in-law was the mole in the family. Ranbir was able to identify that. The decoy was killed. All of that. Then Ranbir again goes on another murder spree. This time he goes to buy a gun, which he designs with the help of some
Yeah,
person
the
who's
CGI gun. Yeah,
the CGI gun, but apparently it was made in India. That's what they said in the movie and showed in the
Yeah, and
movie.
they force-fitted the Made in India narrative.
So
Like,
I think that was a joke. I think and the Atmanirbhar Bharat and all of that. I think
no,
that
but
was a joke, but
that's
we'll
not
come
how
to
the
that.
audience is taking it, right? A lot of
And then
people
and
are
then
like, it's a Make in India narrative, so that's why we love it. That's the
that's
situation.
the very trivial part of it. I don't think you can fault the movie for one or few lines for that. But anyway, point taken. So then the whole CGI gun takes place. There is the before that there is the axe sequence. All of
yeah.
that happens. After that, the axe sequence played to some rousing beats and rousing music and
Which is
songs.
the just prior to the interval crescendo, which everyone
Correct,
is, I think.
correct. The crescendo to the interval. Okay, so for me, this is a movie of two halves. To be honest,
Yeah,
I loved the first half. Right
yeah.
till the first half, where Ranbir is lying in a pool of blood or whatever after murdering hundreds of people with the axe, with the huge gun. I thought that for me, I there are some issues there, but as I said right in my earlier conversation, I would give that at least a 9 out of 10 because of how tight that first half was. Cut to the second half very quickly. Second half goes into its
Wait,
own.
you
Uh,
do
ha-
realize that 9 on 10 is like all-timer movies. Only like
Very
three
good,
or
very good. Yeah, I found it very good because the way it built up to that final.
9 is not a very good
Pre-
rating. 9 is an all-timer rating. It's like Godfather. It's like Lord of the Rings, right?
okay,
So
so there are Godfather references which we'll come to because the son goes away, comes back once the father is attempted to be assassinated, and then the son takes over, kills the bad guys. So there are some Godfather references. They meet during the family function, take the photos in the family function. All of that
yeah,
is some reminiscence of Godfather. But anyway, so second half goes into Ranbir's recovery from that brutal action sequence pre-interval. He's recovering and he has lots of problems. There are lots of jokes, and which Neeraj will, I think, bring up, referring to his urinary
oh,
problems, shaving
Yeah.
of his pubes, all of that stuff. He's not getting,
Constantly
he's not
obsessed.
getting libido enough to have sex and all of that, and that
Obsessed,
stretches out for,
force fitted, like it doesn't
Forcibly.
belong. Yes, so
This
much
yeah.
has
So
force.
that
Every second,
all of that
every
happens. Go ahead. Sorry.
yeah,
Okay.
every
So
2 minutes, it's like force fitted into
there,
something.
there are some I would say toilet humor. There is some pubic jokes scattered everywhere. So Ranbir recovers. Ranbir has got a heart transplant. The lady whose husband's heart transplant was given to him is played by Tripti Dimri. She comes to see him to see if the heart is well.
yeah.
Ranbir, sort of brings her over to his other house. They have a long affair. That sequence goes on. Then it is revealed, and before that is revealed, there is a small cut. I don't know if it's before or after, but she reveals that she was a mole sent by the person who tried to
Yeah.
kill his father, whom Ranbir assassinated in that whole murderous carnage in the first half interval scene. And then she says that I was a mole. They are creating another clone of Ranbir to come and take revenge. And then
Mm.
during this, there is a cut scene. I don't remember exactly whether it was before or after the confession of Tripti Dimri. Uh, but there is this cut scene where they cut to Bobby Deol. And Bobby Deol is shown having his
Oh,
third
Bobby Deol
wedding,
then is like second half entry.
second half,
No,
and
end
the
of second half, like last 20 minutes or
and
Oh,
the
fuck.
and the important part here is the first half is, and I checked my watch when I was watching, it's a 3 hour 20 minutes movie. The first half is 2 hours long. Before
Hmm.
interval, it's 2 hours, and the second half is 1 hour 20 minutes. But for some
Okay.
reason, the second half feels longer than the first half.
Hmm.
The first half goes like that. The second half, which is shorter, seems longer.
Yeah.
But anyway, so cut to Bobby Deol, third wedding, messaging here and there. We can get into that. Bobby Deol kills the guy who comes and informs him that his brother has been killed by Ranbir. Then he, moves on to have a
I think
marital rape
Suraj is
scene.
a very important part where he goes to the pin and gets his cousins.
Okay, yeah, yeah. So that's in the first half. Like immediately after his father's assassination attempt, he goes to his Punjab village, the old Punjab village where his
And
ancestors came
recruits.
from,
Yeah.
and recruits them, and then they become his Punjabi brothers in arms and bodyguards, etc. So anyway, cut to Bobby Deol, marriage, marital rape, or whatever. Then shows him having everything with his
But
three
the
wives
reason
together.
also, right, marital rape, you have to, kind of. So what happens is it's Bobby Deol's marriage scene, right? They're cutting to that, and someone comes in and informs, "Hey, your elder brother has been killed in this violent carnage," and Bobby Deol is he can't speak, right? He has no voice. He's getting
Oh,
married to this girl. Uh, his two previous wives are, when I say previous, they're not ex, they're current, and they're in
yeah.
Scotland for some reason, right? Um, they're smoking and chilling, and they're like, "Oh, we're glad he won't be violent to us anymore." They don't say violent, but they imply, but he will
Yeah.
have this new thing to play with, right? They're both glad he's getting married again. But as soon as he hears that, during the marriage, right in the middle, that his, brother's been killed, he immediately, uh, climbs on his new wife and he starts,
Yeah.
some sort of goes on some
Yeah,
sort of a sexual rampage, and then he pulls her into some room where all three of his wives are shown and they're being forced into doing something. That is, I mean, there's no
Yeah.
character arc, there's no
There's no
backstory.
character.
no, no, but
Not
Because
at
I think they are trying to show him as pure
they haven't
evil.
shown it before or after. There is nothing. That is it. Like Bobby Deol has like basically two scenes. One is here, and then the story cuts back to where he can't speak, right? So he has an elder brother who kind of translates
Sachin
for him,
Sachdeva.
right? Saurabh Sachdeva, right?
Saurabh Sachdeva, sorry, Saurabh Sachdeva. Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
So
That's the brother.
that
Yeah.
guy, he's just hanging around. He's telling everyone, "Hey, I need to be around." They haven't shown anything why the elder brother, because in these patriarchal families you would expect the elder brother to be the
yeah.
the main. Well, Bobby Deol is shown to be the younger brother. He can't speak. He has three wives. For some reason, they have shown no family of the other brothers, right? And then what happens is that they cut back to Delhi, right, where the movie is majorly based, and this girl, like Subir described before, this girl has fallen in love with Ranbir through one
Yeah.
song, which is Didi Main, the Vishal Mishra song that we were
Yeah.
discussing is a beautiful song, right? Um, they've built that song into the movie. They've shown she's fallen in love with him, and then she just confesses, right? So yeah, I absolutely agree. Manoj commented here. Bobby Deol's entry was good, but that's it. There is no intro storyline before or after, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes you can agree, and some that can be artistic expression, that can be storytelling, that the background is shown after. They don't show anything. The next time Bobby Deol is shown, he's in an action scene with Ranbir Kapoor. For some reason, he's as strong as Ranbir Kapoor, and then eventually they fight for a while,
Yeah. The
and
topless fight with
and that can be
Sujit.
subjective. But for me, by the time the movie was so boring that I was really trying not to get up and leave. I was playing games on my phone. It was so boring. Like the action scenes were not good. For
Yeah.
even in the first half, when Subit says that the action scene was that was a great this thing. I mean, there was nothing great about it. We've seen those kind of action scenes 100 times before. They happen in B
I
grade
mean,
movies all the time. Only the graphics were
okay.
better in a B grade movie. Like we've seen very very poor action scenes a lot of times, right? So when I used to go to school in the 90s, Dharmendra used to do a lot of movies, and he would come out with interviews saying that he wants to make money, and he would do movies for 5 lakh rupees each. He would do like 20 movies in like 2 years, 3 years, and all of those would be in like the B grade cinema halls in UP, right? Mithunda used to do the same, great actor before, and then just trying to make money and doing like B grade movies. We have seen all of this in B grade movies before. We have seen a lot of Telugu movies now coming up, becoming mainstream, just showing violence without a storyline. It was basically all of those movies, but with a big star and a big budget, right?
I
Of
mean, I
course,
think I'll disagree with Neeraj to some point, but Neeraj, go ahead and finish your point. Yeah.
right? So the action scenes were poorly executed. Anyway, that's the part where they show Bobby Deol, and they just in one scene they try to show that this is this character, right? That's it, nothing, right? So like I don't agree with people at all. In fact, I judge people who say that this is a Tarantino-esque movie, because that is great disrespect to Tarantino. I believe there are greater directors than Tarantino. People are saying, oh, Scorsese does this. Oh my God, like get a hold of yourselves, please. Like watch some movies, critically analyze them, look at the character arcs, look at the dialogue. There are the dialogue which you brushed over, every 2-3 minutes within the second half. And I'm not even exaggerating. In this long movie, he forces everyone else to, look at his pubes, talk about, he's pulling his pajamas
Yeah.
aside. Even at the end of the movie, when the second Ranbir Kapoor comes in, right, to build up for the what is it, the Animal
Sequel.
Park sequel,
Sequel.
right?
Yeah.
They do that, right? Anyway, getting back to the story. Subal, where were you? You were doing Bobby Deol's
Yeah.
intro,
So
but
Bobby Deol is shown. He gets to know. He's angry. He shoots some guy who supposedly was with his brother, who escapes or whatever. Parallelly, Ranbir gets to know it's Bobby Deol in Scotland. Ranbir. Oh, in between this, Ranbir has a confession scene with Rashmika that he was actually sleeping with Tripti, but he says he was
Bobby too.
trying to get Bhabhi too, yes. So he was trying to get information from her. This is a long played out sequence on the Karwa Chauth night. All of that
Okay.
happens. Then he says, I'm going. Don't get married if I don't return. And then cut to Ranbir is in Scotland, uh, goes to Bobby's house, shoots some people. Bobby's wife is pregnant. I mean, fortunately, thankfully, Vanga doesn't go very dark there. He spares the pregnant wife.
I
And
didn't
and
even
then he goes to
Yeah.
this airfield strip where you have the fight. Ranbir kills Bobby, and then he comes back to seek approval from his father with the knife that he cut Bobby's throat. He puts it in his father's hand. His father is not impressed. Then we have that sequence where Papa, Papa, Papa bolo, Papa bano, main beta bano, or
everything from
whatever.
the trailer is then at the
Uh,
end of the movie. It was
at the end of
supposed
the movie.
to build up for the character. They didn't do that.
Yeah.
It happens
Mm.
after all of that.
Yeah.
It's mind-boggling, right?
Yeah, and it okay, and I forgot to mention, I think, which is what Manoj mentioned. Thanks, Manoj. That
Thanks, Manoj.
Bobby is a distant relative of Ranbir. This was the brother of Anil
Not very
Kapoor's
distant.
grandfather.
Yeah. His
Grandfather's
grandfather,
young.
Ranveer's grandfather is shown, Suresh Oberoi, right? He, when he built this huge company that Anil Kapoor is running, which has made him the richest man in India. When he was building this company, he came out from the Pind in Punjab. His eldest brother was left behind, and he has a whole family there. The eldest brother, the two younger brothers come back, and he's the middle brother, Suresh Oberoi, right? The youngest brother they haven't shown, but the youngest brother was
Yeah,
chucked out of the company that they were building together due to ethical reasons. And then he moved to the UK, changed his religion, gave birth to this huge family, which is Bobby
that's the
Deol and
lineage.
Yeah.
Italy. So they are trying to get revenge and they're trying to get their own.
Got
But
it.
again, they haven't shown any build up.
Yeah.
And he goes to the pinned, he does this huge scene of why, all of his pinned brothers, there are like what, 10, 20 of them,
Yeah, yeah.
they should support and help Balbir uncle. But they
Yeah.
are estranged. They haven't spoken in like 25 years. They say 25
That
years. But
Pragati
they
Pratiksha whatever.
Yeah, but then they all just, he goes there, he gives no, this is before the speech. He does the speech after. Right. I don't know if it's before or after the speech.
Yeah,
He
yeah,
goes to
yeah. Got it.
after the,
Yeah.
he goes to the pin. He says, 25 years, we haven't spoken, but we are still family. You have to support us. We don't even know who's killed him yet. So you have to come and support us. They're like, fine, we'll do it. They all come and, they become his like personal bodyguards. Why? They're his cousins, right? Fine, he's rich. Maybe he's paying them. They haven't shown that. That's fine. But then the other guy who's trying to kill them is also their equal cousin, right? And it's not like these guys were closer than the others. They haven't shown anything,
Yeah.
right?
There's
There is
no
Yeah,
reason.
no story arc. Why are they
I think I
supporting him?
think yeah. So I think, yeah. So I mean, just to end the movie there. So yeah. So he comes back. Anil Kapoor sort of says, "I understand now. What you've been going through. We'll fix it in our next birth. We'll fix it in our next birth, right?" Anil Kapoor is
Mm.
also dying of cancer, so he can't save his father this time. And then he goes and cries on Shakti Kapoor's shoulder, who is like the uncle who's there
Yo,
around always. And
Yeah.
then cut to the end credit or mid credit sequence where they show that they have created a clone of Ranbir Kapoor. Saurav Sachdeva is still alive. He was spared on the battlefront airfield. Saurav Sachdeva goes to the youngest brother, which is another Ranbir now. He's done whatever. He's become a clone. Tripti Dimri is with them. He kills two of
he's not a clone. He's the younger brother who's done like many plastic
whatever
surgery.
plastic surgery, body double. He's been created as a body double, and he kills two of actual Ranbir's two bodyguard brothers in the last
In the
credit sequence.
credits.
Credit
And
sequence where he kills them. He like slashes them
Nice.
with
he slashes them like a
whatever,
million times.
million times, and then
Nice.
that's it. So that's the movie. So okay, so I think I will say this, and again opening it to Himanshu's reaction first, and then Neeraj's points. Um, I felt the second half definitely dragged. Second half felt long. There was some, extended sequences, whether it was their confession sequence, whether it was the Tripti Dimri love sequence, or even Ranbir's recovery sequence,
Oh, Tripti Dimri
which
is
went
also
on.
there in the last scene. She has gone back to the family.
Yeah, she's gone back to that family, and she's probably
So,
pregnant with one of the two Ranbir's child.
yeah, but
So
which Ranbir they
okay,
don't show. And then this
they don't.
Ranbir also pulls his pants out a little bit and tries to say, "Oh, my dick is bigger
Mm.
than everyone else's, so I'm
Yeah.
in the alpha
So
actually." So
so
which,
so 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 um, so yeah. So that's the movie in a long form
Yeah.
nutshell. But I felt the second half did quite disappoint me in terms of introduction of new characters, this whole backstory about their brothers falling apart, uh, the betrayal plot of Tripti Dimri, and then they spared for some reason Saurav Sachdeva, but they killed Bobby Deol, and Saurav Sachdeva and Tripti Dimri both go back together to create this other Ranbir to come back in the sequel. All of this could have been wrapped up in one part, I believe, or have it divided better. But I will not, and this is what Neeraj was referring to, South Indian movies and earlier 90s movies. I have seen a lot of South Indian movies recently because of the craze there. The first half is usually very good. The second half falls off the rail. I have seen it with directors like Atlee doing it with Jawan. The first half was brilliant. Second half sort of fell off. I have seen it with Jailer. I haven't had the pleasure or whatever pain of watching KGF and RRR and Pushpas of the world. I haven't seen, but here's my thing: that they make the first half very well, second half goes off the track. Same thing happens with this one Animal as well. But if I take both together, I will not call it a terrible or a bad movie, right? I will say first half
What
was
is a
great
terrible
for me.
movie to you then?
You gave the movie a 1 star rating, right? If I remember correctly, right?
Yeah,
One
I,
star
I
is
can
like
read out my
bare.
review from TV, but that's not that's purely on execution because it's so horrible. So, but I'll be fair, right? Um, I haven't seen. I generally avoid shitty movies, right? Where I have a feeling. With Animal, I couldn't avoid it because of all the marketing around. Some other people wanted to go, and because if I've heard the music a lot, then it kind of interests me, right? So I went. If I was busy like Manchu on that day, I would not have gone for it, probably, right? But
Hmm.
the whole narrative around the movie that people who are triggered, they don't like the movie. I don't like that because I was not triggered. In fact, throughout the first half, I was constantly laughing, right? But unfortunately, me and a couple of people that I went with, we were the only people laughing in the theater, right? And we were not laughing. It was one of those where
You're
where
laughing
not
at the movie, not like
yeah,
with the
you were like,
whatever.
oh my god,
Yeah,
how can it be so bad? Like
yeah,
the action scenes, etc. A movie is supposed to have character arcs. A movie is supposed to have a story. A movie is supposed to have a screenplay. The screenplay was non-existent. There was no story. The story only makes sense when Subit kind of describes it to make sense, right?
Then I
Even
went
he
beat by beat. I went beat by beat. But again, I mean, I did have problems with uh, parts of the story coming much later, which should have been explained first, or some parts not being explained well at all.
no,
And
but
I
most
think
parts
the
have not been explained at all. Forget about well. They have just not even
hmm,
tried to do it. They're just like this. I have a problem with this kind of cinema. Why? Because they pick up some things to trigger the audience, right? So a lot of movies do this now. They will pick up a few action scenes, a few love scenes, good music, of course, right? Or they try for good music. In this case, they have succeeded, right? They will put it all together. They will not have a storyline. They will not have a screenplay
yeah,
in place, right? And they will just try to make money out of it. Now, I'm fine with it, right? You want to entertain the audiences, and that is where I started this film. I'm fine with it. You want to entertain the audiences. I saw this movie called Rocky Rani something recently. I
hmm.
was fine. Like I enjoyed it. I laughed at the movie and at some scenes that were intentionally funny. The movie must have made big money. I don't know how much. It made big money, had good stars. Fine, right? But don't try to act like you're making a good movie at least, right? Karan Johar doesn't come out. He doesn't pretend that he's making like great a great cinematic experience, right? This guy and the fans who are kind of defending it, they're pretending like this is Bahubali, this is Lord of the Rings, or this is Reservoir Dogs, or for the violence and the blood, or Pulp Fiction, for example. It's not. It is a, a mainstream attempt at a masala movie which has gone big because of the budget and the star and the marketing. That is it. It is no different
Okay.
from a B grade movie that has no storyline. It is no different from a one of these movies that you're showing on the screen right now.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I intentionally pulled that up
Right.
because,
I
see, I think, yeah, go ahead, Neeraj, finish.
I have no intention of seeing some of these movies, right? Because I know that I mean some of them are actually decent, right? But maybe if you scroll down a little bit, right, you'll see there's a Dhoom 3 here, right? Fine. But no one's pretending that it's great cinema, it made big money. It's fine. But that is my problem with Animal. And everyone's like pretending it's great cinema. Because the director and the actors, they came out with this narrative, and that narrative has flown with our it's the same way our politicians are fooling people in this country. They have fooled people by saying, oh, anyone who gets triggered will not like this movie. Anyone who doesn't get triggered will enjoy this movie and love this movie, right? Anyone who knows what an
Yeah.
alpha is, right,
So,
will enjoy this movie. That
okay.
is the whole narrative in social media. People who haven't seen the movie, I
Okay.
have so many people who haven't seen the movie, they are believing in that narrative, right? They're like, oh, if you're a
So,
feminist, you don't like it. But that's not it.
so,
It's a poorly executed bad movie, and all of this is in the narration, in the marketing. in the narrative of the movie, not the narration, sorry, right? Which
which
is what
which which
I
is
have
it?
a bigger problem with. You make money, man, fine. I also went and I also contributed a meagerly
Yeah.
0.0001% to this 500, 600 crores. But then don't pretend like it's great cinema, man. Like, don't do that.
Okay, so I think there are two parts, again, just like the two halves of the movie. I think what I initially had gathered during a conversation is that there is unnecessary violence, unnecessary sexual humor, unnecessary sex in the movie, which is just put in there for the shock factor, or the just making
The dialogue
titillating
was
the audience.
pathetic. The dialogue writing, the script writing was pathetic. It
So
was.
so so let's go. Yeah,
I
so
should have
so
given
that's
it.
in movie. So that's in movie, right? Again, we haven't even come to what the reaction and the criticism around the movie has been. So again, so I think Neeraj said that the movie didn't work for him as a movie, right? So if we talk about the story, the script, the screenplay, Neeraj doesn't believe it exists, or it's very poorly executed. I think
It's so
the
poor. So I do genuinely believe with all my heart that if the three of us, and if we ever get any viewers on this, they might laugh at this. But I genuinely believe if the three of us sat down for 2 days, we would write a better script. I'm not kidding.
So I think the story was there somewhere. I think in terms of putting it up on screen and then again deciding to split it up into the first part and the second part, like the prequel and the sequel, doesn't make sense, and that was very disappointing for me. But I would say, as a director, I think a lot of the scenes where whether these are the fight sequences or the sequences, even the song, I mean not the song, but the romantic sequences that they have a little bit of, Bobby Deol's introduction, all of those sequences are very stylized. So when I was disagreeing with Neeraj that when he said these are like 90s action movies, I don't think it is. The action is very slick. At least the pre-interval action sequence is extremely slick. It's
One
very well
sequence
shot.
you're basing the whole first half on. What about
No, no, I'm
character
saying
arc in there in the first half that I'm missing?
character arc, I would say it does exist, where it shows that, I mean, we don't know how Ranbir was living in the US, but when he comes back,
Yeah, but
it's
that's the
shown
whole. They've just
that
shown,
that
oh, 8 years he went to the US and he was a normal person there, but he comes back and
and
he's
then
again.
that, yeah, his father's assassination attempt triggers him into going on a killing spree, and then he sort of goes further and further down that dark path, becomes more horrible as a person.
There, if the story is not very powerful, if it's a very basic story, right? It was
I
very
agree,
basic.
it's a
Right?
basic story.
You've seen this story a million times, right? Someone insults
Sure.
my family member or my wife. This time it's the father, and I want to take revenge. They try to kill. It's a very basic story. Okay, if fine, I'll give it. But then you have to show good dialogue. You have to show good screenplay. You have to show good arcs of the character and the story. They haven't shown any of it. It's just non-existent,
Yeah, I
right?
wouldn't say it's
One
non-existent, but
action.
I would agree it is poorly done to some extent. Dialogues, I think the best dialogues are, I mean, the best as in the best of the lot are in the trailer itself, right? Uh, the dialogues
But
that I
that's the
remember.
whole point. The entire trailer, 80% of the trailer is in the last 2-3 minutes of the movie. They haven't.
Yeah.
They built up the movie to be something which was going to be different, right? It was still, people can have their own opinions about it, but it was going to be different. But the movie was completely something else. They have never shown why or how he's obsessed with his father,
I
right?
think
They've
that
shown
they
once,
built up from the
oh, I'm
childhood,
busy
right?
on
From the
the
childhood.
laptop, so what? And he goes and checks on his kid at night. They haven't shown Anil Kapoor being this asshole father who's abused his kid. Why does he become a psychopath? There's no,
I think
oh,
some people are born psychopaths, and
yeah,
it's
but
only
like
the
this
environment
level
which
is
pushes them over the edge.
not. I mean, they didn't even show that he was a born psychopath. They showed he was a normal kid whose father ignored him once. He was on his laptop and he went and slept with a letter of his father, and that's it. He's just a
Okay,
psychopath.
so Neeraj, so before we get into the discussion around the movie, the meta of the movie, which is in the public sphere, uh,
Yeah.
very quickly, and I'll come to Himanshu for his views as well. Uh, just let me know a thumbs up or a thumbs down on the following parameters, like in movie parameters, which I had thought I'd discuss with you at depth. So story slash script, thumbs down. Okay. Screenplay.
Many, I don't know how it comes.
Okay, since the director and the editor are the same person, direction and editing.
It's, I mean, it's hard to sometimes separate acting performances from direction, right?
I'll come to
And
acting as a separate category. Yeah.
okay, so yeah, pretty. So director, I see as the overall, overarching. If you like the movie, you like the director direction. If you don't like the movie, you don't like the direction. So editing is pretty pathetic because editing is what would have made the screenplay work and the story justifiable. So editing is extremely poor. Like it's just a bunch of random things put together.
Okay, cinematography.
Yeah, that's good.
Okay, dialogues.
Uh, I already said we could have done better in like a day.
Okay, music.
Maybe a 12-year-old could have written like better sex jokes.
Okay,
I'm not.
music.
Music was great.
Okay, okay. The action and the violence, because the action is
Uh,
violent, so I'm putting them together.
so the one or two action scenes are good, but the problem is that there's no arc. There's no good arc building to that action, right? And the violence is, I mean, I don't abhor violence in movies, especially in action movies, right? Um, but it has to again come with like an arc of justification why someone is so violent or why everyone is so violent, right? And why they're showing or killing the way that they should. There's no there's no justification.
Okay,
Tarantino's
and
character
last one,
kill like that.
performances slash acting.
Um, so I will say this: it is very hard to separate the acting itself from the dialogue of the movie, right? If you were to separate, then yes, the performances are good. Everyone looks like they're following the director's lead in being what they have to be, right? So I put the responsibility on the director to making those actors do such shitty dialogue. And honestly, apart from the action sequences, and before the movie got serious, even when he was fighting with his Jiju and all, the even the acting performances were bad, right? In the beginning, like the what's that guy's name? I think he's some Siddharth or something, right?
Mm-hmm.
That guy's acting is so bad. His sister's not doing well. So at the beginning of the movie only, the acting was pretty much his friends, the Rashmika, I forgot her name in the movie, Gitanjali or something, right?
Mm-hmm.
Her engagement scene that they've shown, right? And when they are both running to Gitanjali's family, her brother is supposedly Ranbir's best friend. All of those, like very, very, very like below average masala movie
Okay.
acting, right? So again,
Okay.
performances. They've just and they started with superstar Ranbir Kapoor. Fine, you know, you want to build that thing, it's fine, but there's nothing exceptional. I think Ranbir has done so much better in so many other movies.
Okay. Okay. Himanshu, coming back to you, been silent for a long time. Having heard whatever we've discussed so far, we aren't done yet.
Yeah.
Let me know, guys, if there's a hard stop at any time. We'll wrap up accordingly. But what's your overall view of the movie? Are you planning to watch it? Because we still have to get into
Yeah.
the discussion around the criticism, apart from what we've discussed about the movie.
So see, when I hear Neeraj, and I totally resonate that a lot of movies these days are not cogent. They are not coherent. One scene to the other scene, things sprinkled in between. And these are all the makings or markings of a mass movie, as we call it in India. That,
Which is on
this
this
is a.
particular list, right? Except maybe one or two
You
examples.
see, if
All
isme
of
bhi,
these are.
and I have a view on this, that, and it kind of reminded when Neeraj says, 80s, 90s cinema, that 80s, 90s cinema is back.
Sure.
It is a cyclic. See, when I think there was this 80s, 90s cinema, and then the whole, and which I'm borrowing from that Adi Chopra's documentary, that when the multiplexes came into being, suddenly you would want stories, the heroes, the protagonists were a little softer. You would see movies like PK, Three Idiots of that time, right? sprinkled some Ekta Tiger here and there, you would see that okay, the movies are coming in, and movies leave this list. Movies like Omkara, uh, directors like Anurag Kashyap could take that risk to tell stories which are coherent, where the lead is intellectual, the lead is movie, or ये इसमें भी you can see Dangal, PK, Three Idiots doing well because of China has put in a lot of money in
Sure.
terms of collections, right?
Correct.
But that was the theme. People used to go for such things that Neeraj was expecting in this movie. That it has to be that somebody can't just fly a plane and then leave it on autopilot, have sex, come back. Then it is now a benchmark of all the highly grossing movies right now. It's a very. I was watching Jawan yesterday. I was at my parents' place, a safe Shah Rukh Khan movie to watch with your parents. Same. I mean, you see a cavalcade of police vans going, and very typical South Indian director style. It was shown in fast forward. It because they have to
Sure.
pack so many things inside. And see, you cannot OTT, you can build character arcs because you have 7 episodes of 1 hour each. So hence you should choose stories wherein you can slowly build onto something. But here I think it's all masala movies. I would understand that this is very typical of movies now, and these movies are back in terms of grossing.
Yeah. So
Movies
so
like
so.
Three Idiots. Yeah.
But
Hmm.
Himanshu,
Okay. Go
uh,
ahead.
sorry, I would just like slightly. I will wait for you to watch the movie and also comment on that. But my comment is that I haven't seen most of these masala movies, but I have seen a few. But
Yeah.
they're still more coherent than this BS, and they don't pretend to be.
Absolutely. Absolutely. See, there
Those are
can
the
be
few
a
parts.
degree. Yeah, there can be a degree to it, but generally, that's how I feel now. A lot of these, and I also have not watched any of these big action movies. I watched Ekta Tiger in 2012. At that time, also, I felt, what is this? Jawan, I was looking at yesterday. Again, somebody, falling from the top of an airplane, gets, is flowing in the river and then
No, no,
makes a
so I
big
think
comeback.
realism. I think realism. If you are expecting realism from these kind of movies,
So not
then
realism, but
it's
I
on us.
mean patchy. So I think, see, realism or whatever, this anime-esque kind of movie making is also liked. I mean, because when I opened my Prime in Japan, just to, I don't know, watch something, so Tamil movies were highly recommended there. So I think it was
Yeah.
Prime Video
You see,
Japan.
over
So
the top movies, over the top action, hero fighting thousands of bad guys, all of that is par for this. Like whether you look at Jawan, Pathan, Tiger
yeah.
movies, that's
But
all there.
sometimes and sometimes that, and then you load other stuff on top of it, then it becomes a little hard to digest. Like,
Fair. Fair.
a Bajrangi Bhaijaan was, I think, Salman's best movie that I have seen, and there are people who would have that kind of an appetite wherein there is a storyline, and then things are a little logical. In action, I think Indians definitely go over the top, and that's a style of movie making. But yeah, so I think that's what I get from what Neeraj is saying, and
Himanshu,
what I get from.
that's what I was saying, right? So with action, even if I was okay to digest that part, and I completely left that out of my criticism, right? The
Yeah,
action scene where suddenly 300 people are coming into hotel, and they've done this old boy type. I'm sure you guys have seen Old Boy, right? The
Yeah. Yeah.
legendary corridor scene where he beats So I'm actually leaving that out of the criticism, right?
yeah.
In spite of that, and in spite of leaving everything else out of the criticism, just the movie on its pure editing, screenplay is incoherent. It's pathetic. So
Okay.
See, I
Sorry.
think that is there with I think Pathan. I could not watch, to be honest. I waited for the OTT, and
but
when
were
he
but were
took
people
the.
around you pretending that it's a great movie? I don't know.
Yeah,
Friends.
absolutely. A
Yeah,
lot of
okay.
people.
I must have
Not
missed it.
great movie. Like, the movie had its own 2-3 weeks, and it was a rage. I think in
No, but
that
this
time,
one
and
people are
then
pretending like it's a great all timer. Right? People like Subhad are giving 9 on 10 to the first half, and Subhad, I
First
really
half.
respect his
First half.
opinion. I
I
can't.
have
Yeah, which
given
is
the
fine.
movie
See, which
second
is
half. I
fine. I
gave
think
four. I think.
if we ask Subit the same question in 2024, and maybe it's just the hype that people
No, maybe
level that.
I mean, after this discussion, I might reconsider my rating as well.
So, see,
But
I mean, the type of cinema, if you ask me, wherein, one cut to the other, it's jumping from here and there, and then suddenly, this scene, that scene, even I find it hard. I had to, I did not continue to watch Patan after he took the helicopter and did a vertical climb with it through a chimney. मेरा हो गया मतलब I was like
that
कि
was the
ठीक है
first
यार.
scene. That was the first scene. What I'm
हाँ,
saying.
so ओके हाँ ठीक है तो वो 15 मिनट्स में मेरा हो गया. मैं कहा नहीं भाई ये सीजीआई वाला हेलीकॉप्टर उड़ाता हुआ एंड सीजीआई लेडन एक्टर ऑन टॉप ऑफ इट.
No, but I'm actually giving it the benefit of doubt even then and saying, fine, let's accept it.
नहीं ठीक है. So हाँ मतलब if what I hear from everyone, I think yeah that is what is working these days, and I think people are used to it, hence the kind of mahal around the movie. And ठीक है, I think it is working. I think there was a day and time when movies like I think the unfortunate part is that, see, and I was looking at Sandeep Vanga's filmography. It started with Arjun Reddy only,
Yeah. So
and then
that's
Kabir Singh. So and then this animal, and then he has one more project. Problem is that he'll be now motivated to make, and then he will fall flat. Then he will fall flat is for
he will,
sure. I think
doesn't
it's.
matter. He will make a lot of money in life and he'll be a rich guy for the
No, he
rest of
has
his life.
already made that. I think for
Yeah.
his, I think he has been in the industry for about. I was looking at it. 2003 से he is there. तो वो assistant director होगा and he's peaked. Now, peaked in the sense he's made a lot of money. But अब I think his next one, if he continues on this spree and gets motivated by what he's done, अब जैसे वही yesterday we were talking about Siddharth Anand. War I have not seen, but I think after war he had Pathan, which I think he then took it to the next. A fighter mein chalo, it's a new concept of fighter
So
jet,
the
so it
trailer
might.
looks like a Top Gun copy.
Ah, exactly, and people want a desi version of it, so I think it will work. But to the
Yeah,
point that will
we'll
it
make Top
be?
Gun, not Top Gun 2 directly.
Huh? I mean,
Go back to the
but
80s and yeah, Top Gun 2
So
worked because the new Top Gun worked because of the nostalgia factor from the 80s, not because it's a fresh concept, right? And they're trying to sell of these things as I mean, is India still living in the 80s? I mean, of course, most of India still is. India lives in like, 2 centuries. We have all of those, statements, all of those paradoxes, right? But
no, so
with cinema,
here,
why are we still
go ahead.
pretending it's a great movie? I think I have a major problem with the narrative, right? Why is Ranbir Kapoor pretending like, fine, he has to sell the movie so he can pretend? But why are other people pretending like, it's a great movie? And oh, because you didn't like the movie, you must be triggered. I mean, I
So that
didn't
is that
get
is
to the point of getting triggered like Kabir Singh because the movie was so pathetic. I kept laughing at the movie,
I
right?
mean, I did find a few scenes that made me uncomfortable, but I would not say that I found it, I would say problematic as a lot of people have said, and which is what I would like to, discuss in this particular part. And as I was sort of going through, as you can see, right, there are hundreds and hundreds of videos of, people saying this is problematic, don't watch it, etc., etc. So, which is the more meta discussion around the movie, where whether or not intentionally or otherwise, that Sandeep Reddy Vanga put certain elements in the movie, whether it
I think
was
he
the
has.
treatment,
He has clearly.
whether it
Intentionally.
was the treatment of women, whether it
See, I
was
think
certain
wo Kabir Singh I have seen. Kabir
Hmm.
Singh still that character, and of course a lot of focus was just on Kabir Singh, the guy himself,
It was from his
and you could
perspective,
see
right?
ठीक
It
है,
was completely from
there is
his
certain.
lens.
Yeah, he is built like that, whatever is, and the little amount of sanity that was there, that he's a doctor and he's talking about a certain biological thing. चलो फिर भी उसका दोस्त भी था to calm that entire conversation around him. And then there was one dialogue in which he says, his brother says that we are planning a kid, and he says, what is planning. So it kind of, it gave that flavor कि यार ये बंदा है ऐसा. He's a raw, he
Right.
believes in a very raw state of being. If you're loving, then you're loving. If you're married, then you're not really planning for such things, etc. in life. Still, यहाँ पे I
But
get it
usually the
because
intent and the narrative was bad, but the execution was still not like bad. Like whatever he was intending to do, at least
I mean, see, Kabir
however
Singh,
wrong it was or bad it was, he executed it decently well. If not a 10 on 10, then a solid 6.5, 7 at least, right?
So
He
मतलब
Neeraj, what
हाँ,
would your rating
एब्सोल्युटली
be
यार,
for
मतलब
Kabir
अगर
Singh?
कबीर सिंह में ये कहोगे कि देखो, एक तो देयर इज वन थिंग कि यू शुड हैव शोन द कैरेक्टर लाइक दैट आई disagree with. Whoever wants to show a character like anything can show a character. If a female character is a subdued, she does not talk, we have enough people around, both male and female, in a relationship who don't take the lead, or who would hear five things and not say anything back, which is fine. But I mean, with these all these latest action-packed movies, wherein from one cut to the other and then taking it to the next level, I think
So, so before I go
I
into
am.
that
Huh.
meta
Yeah,
part of
yes,
it,
yes.
right?
The moderator should now kind of
No,
take
no,
it to
no,
the
that's
next
absolutely
direction.
fine.
Yeah.
Very interesting that you brought up Kabir Singh because all of this started with Kabir Singh. I don't think us, like the
So, just
Hindi-speaking
for my
audience.
knowledge, Arjun Reddy was Telugu version of Kabir Singh, right?
yeah, yeah.
Correct, correct, correct,
Kabir
correct.
Singh was
Yeah,
the
he
Hindi
made the
remake.
same movie
It was
twice.
a Bollywood
He made the
remake,
same movie
not
twice.
just Hindi.
Yeah,
No,
yeah, yeah.
so for us Hindi-speaking audience in North, whatever India, for me, Kabir Singh was the first introduction to Sandeep Reddy Vanga. I did not know about Arjun Reddy at
And
all.
I think there is no reference. I mean, I just checked. That was these are his movies, and now he's trying to coming back to the intention point. I think he's just trying to accelerate on the same format. If his next one is again coming on the same format, by
I
that time people would have been
no,
done with
so
this format.
what is the format? So that is what I was coming to, right? Kabir Singh
What's your
was a
optimism
story
in
about
life?
a
We've been getting
toxic
more and more
relationship.
polarized with time, and we don't we don't know how much more polarized we could get. We're not there yet. Are we in a full blown nuclear war yet? As a society, we're not. So there is
No, no,
no
no.
state.
What I mean by
Just optimism speaking that can it become any worse? It possibly cannot. That's what we're thinking, but maybe it can.
no, no,
That's the
I didn't
problem.
mean that. What
No, no, I'm
I'm
responding to Himanshu's point, not
Oh, okay, 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 okay. Sorry. What I was sort of thinking was that these two are very different movies. Obviously, there are certain traits, uh, in both the protagonists, which could be taken as similar. Uh, Anger could be one. Certain beliefs in about society, men and women could be another. But these two are very, very different movies. Kabir Singh is about it's sort of a love story. It's maybe a toxic love story, but about a doctor struggling with alcoholism, heartbreak, and whatever redemption at the end. It's a very self-contained story from his perspective, and it doesn't really go into violence of any kind, except for maybe a few domestic skirmishes where both each of them slap each other around. This is a very different level of, I would say, escalation of character
Yeah,
story,
I think, yeah,
action,
that's the
violence.
word. I think is, I mean, he got
So I don't
motivated.
think.
He got
Yeah, go
encouraged
ahead.
or motivated by one trait of one character, and he thought, okay, let's do it 10x, and hence basing the entire thing in a Punjabi family, because the stereotype around being loud and violent and brotherhood coming from. And think it is working. I mean, I also listened to, and I was listening to Arjun Veli on loop for a long time. Uh, ठीक है, it worked
So
commercially. It worked from a massy appeal point of view.
it worked commercially, and but there is a huge chunk of the population, and probably you would have seen it on Twitter. I'm not on Twitter, but just going by YouTube, there are so many people who are saying that this movie, apart from being a bad movie, which we heard Neeraj say,
Hmm.
that this movie is problematic. That such movies should not be made. As you can see, the first one, how did censor board allow this? How censor board approved this film? Why you should not like Sandeep Reddy Vanga's Animal? Why?
Yeah.
So the
हाँ,
narratives
मतलब ठीक है.
around
I
the
mean,
movie.
see, personally, I don't write these boards that should be banned and should not. It's art, yeah. Whatever you want to make, you should make.
So I think the main
Yeah, I
argument
think I'm
around it
all for
was
artistic freedom. But then artistic freedom also has to come with criticism, right?
Sure.
The freedom to criticize, right? And the
Absolutely.
criticism has to be that if there is a movie with so much money and marketing machinery behind it, T Series is the biggest YouTube channel in the whole world, right? And they're the producers of the movie, not just the music, right? If
Yeah.
you get this kind of marketing and budgets behind you, and you make it on such problematic topics, right? And you're glorifying violence, you're glorifying misogyny, right?
So
You
this is a
might say
different topic.
no. So but I'll no, it's not a different topic.
I think let him kind of conclude. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, what they've done in the movie is they've shown a psychopath, but they haven't called him a psychopath. They're outside in the media. They're saying, "Oh, we've shown a violent character.
But
This
it's in
guy
the
is a
name
psychopath."
itself of the movie, right? The movie is called
No,
an
but they're
animal.
justifying. They're justifying. They're not saying being animal is bad. They're saying being animal can be cool, right? And I'll tell you why. Because they're not calling him an animal in the movie. They're calling him an alpha, right? They're not saying he's a roadside dog who gets poor treatment from human beings or a monkey. They're saying he's the alpha who's the king of the jungle, right? And why that is a problem is because humans being the race we are, right? We're most of us are ambitious, or at least we want to see that, right? We want to be and we want to pretend, right? Why has the government banned smoking on screen? Tell me that. Because they
It
don't
hasn't
want
banned.
kids to see.
It hasn't banned.
I mean, it comes with a disclaimer, right? It's not been
Correct.
banned,
Correct.
right?
Correct.
Why do we accept, right, that smoking should come with a disclaimer, right? Because we all agree, right, that it's not good for health, one. And if you show that on screen, a cool, good looking, a rich person like Ranbir Kapoor doing it, you would expect kids to want to copy and follow, right?
Okay. So this is where we are, I
Now
think,
they're
completely
doing the
diverging
same thing
about the
with
meta.
alpha, right? They're constantly they never said it's problematic. They just said, "Oh, he's an alpha." Then they're never saying he's a psychopath. They're never saying he should not be a part of society. They're saying, "Oh, he's the richest guy in the country. Of course, he can break law. Of course, he's an alpha." There is no sign of police. There's no sign of law enforcement in the movie. So
So
the
again, so
messaging,
so okay, I have heard these right arguments like why there is no police in this universe. There is no police in the John Wick universe also. Only one time a cop shows up at John Wick's door saying, "Hey John, are you back at work?" That's it. John Wick kills thousands
sure,
of people. There is no police in the John Wick universe. So
sure,
that I don't even take it as a justified
that's fine.
criticism.
Yeah,
When
it's
when
not.
Ranbir is fighting people in the hallway, his Sikh brothers start singing a song. It's not a realistic movie, but here is my point, right? When you say that people will pick up bad behavior from this movie because it's being
And
glorified,
they will justify it by saying, "Oh, I'm an alpha," because they are saying that being an alpha is a good thing. He tells Tripti Dimri, one of the characters, that, "Oh, if you're loyal to me, you have to lick my boot." Right? He says that in the movie. Right? Now,
sure.
I would expect educated moderates and liberals to see through that, right? But when you're making a massy movie, right? I don't like the Salman Khan and the Shah Rukh Khan movies that they're doing now to make money, but the few of them that I've seen, they don't have this problem. They have they have a fantasy kind of a representation, the one that Himanshu described. Oh, jumping through a helicopter, going through a chimney, etc. But they don't have these regular life problems that you show. I mean, tomorrow there's a problem. There's a drinking problem in majority of villages in India where people beat women up, right? If that person is seeing this movie and wanting to be an alpha, you would
No,
expect
no. So then we are saying that a lot of things that have been shown in
Yeah,
cinema
I
should
mean,
not be shown
ठीक है वहाँ पे,
because
that's
this
what
is a
I
very
was saying
slippery
कि
slope.
yeah,
Because I'll
should
tell you.
वाला,
So here is
yeah,
what
I
I'm saying,
mean,
right?
हाँ,
Okay,
I
let's
mean,
let's take some examples, right?
to prove your
Uh,
loyalty, you have to lick my boot. I mean, I don't know. It was
see,
pretty.
I
it's
mean, I would say
it,
if he wants to make a character like that, if he wants to put 300 crore
Sure.
it's a
behind a
despicable
character like that,
character
if
by the end of it, right?
Gulshan
It's a
Kumar
despicable.
or Bhushan Kumar wants to put 100 CR behind a character like that, and should there be a moral compass in their head? ठीक
No,
है,
so
I
that's
think
what, right? So
I
Himanshu,
don't
I
think so.
said the execution itself was bad, and now we had moved on to the broader problems with the.
I mean,
correct, correct,
exactly.
correct,
So there
correct.
I'm with you कि ये जो jumpy, and if it is to me, would I have liked this movie in the theater? I think I would not have liked. But हाँ
But
ठीक है, I mean जैसा ये this lady's thumbnail I can see animal movies are disease, ठीक है यार, I mean I I
So here
I will
is,
not, I will not tread that
you know,
path कि it is a
when I
disease
when I
and नहीं
reviewed
होना
the
चाहिए.
movie, when I put my comment on IMDb, etc., right? I and that is the disclaimer I gave at the beginning of the discussion, right? I ignored all of this, broader narrative, and the movie was still bad. But now that we're discussing the broader narrative, I will not
Yeah,
yeah.
pretend that that is also not a problem. It is a huge problem.
sure.
Okay.
Okay.
So let's
So
go into the
we can decide, we can
into
say the movie is good or bad without the narrative. Separating the art and the artist, and all of those things, right? Separating the society from what really exists and what
Yeah.
we want it to be.
But उसमें ना what I feel is that, see, if one animal with this narrative goes up, then there are other two Dangals and one Three Idiot. That automatically, that good and bad energy kind of with creation also through art only. There'll be two more movies or one queen which will get a hit, and
That
things
doesn't
like that.
mean that that doesn't see you do one good and one bad. That doesn't justify the bad.
No, no, not you. I'm saying in general.
no, no, but
Two
Yeah.
no, no. So
houses
okay,
may have, or even T series may do another one, not to compensate for it automatically.
I,
Just that
yeah.
see, I think when we say bad and good, I think while I was, completely on board to critically break down different aspects of the movie, saying this was good, this wasn't great, this was bad, completely fine. But when people in the chat here, or in the videos that we were seeing, or in the reviews, they are saying this is a problematic movie. People should not watch this movie. Or people or somebody should not be allowed to make such a movie. I have a huge problem with that. And there are a few reasons for that, right? One, to think that movies have that kind of an impact where people will disregard all the fantastical aspects of the movie and start emulating the behaviors of that particular character is is too far fetched. We have had violent protagonists. We have had John Wicks. We have had Taxi Driver. We have had Godfather. We have had
But
Scarface.
no,
Nobody
no.
has
But
started.
these are poor examples, Subhad. I'll tell you why.
Why?
Disregarding John Wick from your list, Taxi Driver, they very clearly built a character which was a psychopath, right? They uh, didn't do that here. Godfather, they clearly showed that they were criminals, right? They showed mafia. They showed a mafia family, and that was taken completely out of reality. That was the real situation of the mafia families. What was the third one you mentioned?
Scarface.
Scarface, they showed him to be a violent criminal right at the beginning of the movie, right?
So
Again,
as I'm saying, right?
taken out of like real life, right? This is not taken out of real life, but it is.
So exactly, if it is, if real life characters have not influenced people to take up crime
No, but they
because of the
have.
lust for power and money and all of that, what makes people think that a fictional story
But
will start make people behave in that animalistic manner? That's one.
not
Second,
exactly. So Subhid, you have to you have to think about, not from an educated moderate or a liberal or even a conservative person's an educated person's perspective who can see through and make these logical judgments. You have to see it from the perspective of a person who hasn't had that kind of exposure and education, right? And all they unfortunately do, right, is go to work in the morning, labor all day, and then come back, get drunk, right? And that's unfortunate. uh, you know that's the
no,
unfortunate majority of our country, right?
they do that, but the fact that we are saying that these people don't have humanity or basic human feelings of knowing
It's not
right
about
from
all
wrong,
of them. It's
respecting people or not being violent, I think it's just dehumanizing a certain
No, it's
category or
not
class of
demonizing.
people.
It's the reality of the country that not every person obviously is like that, but there are still significant
if
number
if
of people
if
who
there are
treat
if
their
there are
wives.
wife beaters, if there are wife beaters
Yeah,
in lower class, there are wife beaters in upper class.
correct,
A
right?
lot of educated people. We recently heard the Raymond family
I agree. I
baron
agree. Yeah.
apparently has a temper and is abusive. So it is immaterial whether we are talking about this having an impact on the lower classes, uneducated, unexposed classes,
No, I
because
what I
even in
no
higher
that's a
classes
fair
this
point.
is there.
I agree. I agree. Is just that the incidence or the frequency of people having an education and a rational mind, you would expect it to be more with people who have the exposure and the education. if you do not have the exposure and the education, you would expect the, you know, uh, so all the social evils that we talk about, fortunately or unfortunately, they get reduced first in the educated or the more exposed parts of the society, right? So removal of sati, for example, removal of dowry, for example. I'm not saying dowry still doesn't exist in the educated sections of the society, but at least it's
Okay,
now
but
in the wider
there is a
educated society.
legal legal framework around things that you can do, cannot do. You
Correct, but the
can't
legal
beat up
framework comes
people.
after the society kind of,
Evolves, yes, exactly.
evolves,
But the legal framework is applicable to everybody. We know you can't
right?
beat up
But
people,
wife
you'll
beating
get
is
into
illegal,
trouble.
but people still do it, right? And marital rape is illegal, but people still do it. So
But that is
do you,
not because, or to say that movies such as this will increase occurrences of that is far-fetched, because
I'm not saying
we've
they will
had.
create fresh thoughts of people, thinking of that, but I think it does give encouragement to people because it does tell them that there are more people like them, and then it is, and that this behavior is okay because it is glorified, right? I don't
So
know.
this
I
is
don't know
not
how
a
it is, but
documentary, right? This is not a documentary where people see that somebody living their life in such a manner and that has, found its way to
if
people.
it
It's a
was a
fictional
documentary,
story.
I think it would not have been problematic because they would have just been showing the reality of the world rather than glorifying it.
Yeah, I mean, and this is what I'm struggling to sort of come to terms with, because we've seen people be violent, abusive in cinemas before. We've seen it in Indian movies, we've seen it in Hollywood movies, we've
Yeah,
seen plethora of violence of different kinds, sexual violence,
yeah,
just general violence. You take the example of Game of Thrones. You take example of certain Anurag Kashyap movies. There is
yeah.
tremendous amount of both sexual violence as well as general violence. At
Agreed.
that time, the criticism did not reach this level. Nobody criticized Game of Thrones. Maybe a few sporadic
Because
sections
there's the
saying why.
realistic.
No, no,
I'm
it,
not
it
talking
is
about. No,
it
I'm
is
not
about
talking about.
human to human connection.
So let's talk about Bollywood, right? So if you're talking about Anurag Kashyap, I think any time that he has shown violence in like heavily promoted or mass movies, there have been like character arcs behind it, and they don't glorify
But
it.
character arcs cannot justify that, right? I mean, how so if you're talking about the
They do,
meta.
right? If there is a Raman Raghav, right? They do show that that guy is a psychopath, and they justify.
No, okay, here is what my problem is. If you're
He's not
saying
glorified. He's shown as
showing
a
such
dark.
things are problem, so I can assume that I am going through such a dark phase that I will take recourse to that kind of behavior because that has been showed as normalized on screen. I'm asking you to dissociate the two things. Either you say showing this is wrong, or in some cases showing this is fine because there is a good story behind it to say why this person is so. People who are uneducated, uncultured will not be able to make the distinction which is backed by a good story and which is backed
But
by a poor
so
story.
Subhit, why we're debating this is because this movie has become like a viral success, right? So it has reached more people than a lot of the other movies that you mentioned. So it becomes a wider problem for the society. It's not an art movie being shown in a film
That's what my
festival.
question is. Why is this a problem for society? That's what I'm not trying to understand. Why is this movie
Why
a
is this
problem
a
for
problem
society?
for society? Because glorifying societal evils just gives them encouragement to do more of it because it is glorified. That if you think, marital
But
rape.
that has been there in so many movies. That's what I'm saying. There have been movies, and irrespective of
Kabir Singh, so
whether
that's why we discussed Kabir Singh, right? Because Kabir Singh was problematic uh, as well, right?
because
It,
he
it was
slapped her.
no, it was the whole personality that they showed, right? So when we spoke about Kabir Singh, I did mention that the execution was much better than Animal, but the intent and the narrative behind it was problematic, and people did justify it even at the time, right? Which is a problematic narrative for the
No, no. So
society.
having a problematic character versus saying this
No,
movie
Kabir Singh
is a
didn't
problem
just
for.
have a problematic character. Kabir Singh had a so from a see there are two perspectives, right? One perspective is should these movies allowed to be made? Of course, anyone should be able to make anything that they want, right? And the censor
Sure.
board has the right to put a certificate to it that you have to watch it with certain level of understanding, etc., which I completely agree to. But with like they said in Batman, with great power comes great responsibility, right? T series as this huge marketing machine, right? It can choose to make money through this movie, but then they also have the responsibility to, not glorify it to the extent that animal is being glorified within the movie and outside the movie, right? No one was glorifying, Nawazuddin Siddiqui in Gangs of Wasseypur for being a murderer. Everyone was
Oh
glorifying,
no, I think Nawaz became a cult hero.
correct,
The movie
but
became a
not
cult
for being
classic.
a murderer, but for being a great actor who played the character to the T. That was
No, but
uh,
that is again
but
our
Ranbir
urban
Kapoor.
interpretation of the Gangs of Wasipur movie. We don't know what kind of impact the Gangs of Wasipur movie would have had on residents
No,
of
but
Wasipur.
that character was taken out of society. He was a realistic character. So he was just showing, so art was showing, was depicting what exists, right? So that is his artistic expression of, picking out some parts of the society and showing that on screen. Here, they're not pretending to be a fantasy movie, right? They're not pretending it's just fiction, right? It's not fantasy.
Sure, it's
But
fiction.
they're glorifying everything. They're glorifying all the
But if
misogyny.
by
Everything.
glorifying you mean putting
No,
putting
I've
sound
been
beats to it,
on
or the
WhatsApp groups.
actor coming dressed in suit and with a fancy shiny gun, if that is called glorification, then the movie should have been made like
No, but
Wasipur,
it's the
where
entire
the villain
marketing.
is sitting.
You see the way Ranbir Kapoor, Sandeep Reddy Vanga, and everyone who's loving the movie, they're coming out. I've seen so many reels on Instagram over the past 1 week where they're constantly saying, "Oh, so alphas do this. So what?" You know, I've had people in my office tell me that, "Oh, it's a movie about an alpha." They're not saying it's a movie about a psychopath. That's not the narrative. They're all saying this movie is about an alpha and alphas are supposed to behave like this, right?
No, so then
That's
then
the
then if
takeaway, probably, which is kind of not
Yeah,
going down
I
with
mean
which very
that
well.
is not the
And
takeaway from a Gangs
no,
of
but
Wasseypur.
how people no okay, so how people choose to interpret a movie and imbibe it is an
But that's the wider
individual thing.
narrative. It's not an individual interpretation.
I don't
So
think it's a wider narrative. If
it
this
is.
movie has made
yeah.
600 crores and maybe you know
Yeah.
whatever 1 crore or 2 crore people have watched this movie already, they haven't gone out and they will not start taking this as life lessons from the movie and do it. A small minority could. A small minority could take inspiration from Gangs of Wasipur and shoot somebody. A small minority could take inspiration that from somebody carving out
But
somebody
this is
from the.
this time the narrative is of more than a small minority. Vast number of people on social media are justifying this as the actions of an alpha, and that is fine, right? Now
No,
it is not
okay.
regarded as the actions of a criminal, right? Which is what it was in Gangs of Wasseypur.
Anil Kapoor continuously says, "Our son is a criminal. Our son is a criminal."
It doesn't. That narrative is not widely adapted the way it has been
No, so I
adapted.
think, and there has been a clear divide in this that for some reason Sandeep Reddy Vanga has been pushed as uh, a person with misogynistic, toxic, masculine
If
vision, which
all the
he's
work
trying
that
to.
is done is that, then that is, if your entire creative work so far is, not even littered, the centerpiece of the two movies that you have made, and you're the director and possibly the writer, and this time also the producer. So the movie is a Sandeep Reddy Vanga film, right? It says right there.
Sure.
If you have only ever made like two movies, and they're both about these heavily
So
violent
the
men.
same thing can be said about, let's say, and sorry to bring this up, Tarantino, that he's a psychopathic, violent, murdering man because he keeps making about movies about people just shooting people dead. Every Tarantino's movie has this
There,
whole
there is
thing
there,
of
there is a there is a there is a
violence and gory violence.
huge difference, and it's not even nuanced, right? I won't say the difference. There are
No, I'm
huge
just
characters.
saying that every Tarantino movie has extreme amount of gory violence. That is his
Yeah,
signature. That is his hallmark. So, are we calling Tarantino a violent, murdering psychopath? No, we are not.
no,
Then
I haven't.
why is this particular person
I can't.
being labeled
I'll,
as a sexist, misogynist, toxic, masculine symbol?
I will tell you why. Because this guy, in all of his interviews, he justifies all of this. Tarantino is never justifying these people. He's calling them psychopaths when he's writing those characters. There is a huge amount of difference in the narrative. So this is the narrative part of it, right? Um his narrative gives away his intention. And the narrative is not just marketing of the movie Animal or of the movie Kabir Singh. It's also the narrative of the Anupama Chopra interview that you brought up in between, which was significantly in between those two movies. That gives away intent, right? It The way the movie is made gives away the director's intent as well. I can think of 1,000 different ways. Okay, 1,000 is an exaggeration, but I can think of a few different ways. Uh, this exact plot could have been made into a great movie, right? And I'm not a
Sure,
film.
nobody's denying that. Nobody's denying that this could have been made a far superior
Yeah,
movie, and but
no, but
again,
no, but you're
even if
saying
it
nobody's
was a
denying
far
that, but that's the problem. Almost everyone I know who's watched the movie is denying that. They are like, "Oh my god, we love this movie. This is an all-timer." And when you say it's a 9 on 10 in the first half, 9 on 10 is what Godfather is rated. 9 on 10 is what Lord of the Rings is rated, right? 9 on 10 is an all-time great movie.
I'm rating only the first half in terms
Yeah,
of
even the
the
first half.
conflict and
Even the first
escalation.
half. It is problematic. The first half has so many issues, right? It's not a 9 on 10 is a very one-sided rating, saying this is an absolutely great movie. It doesn't say, oh, it's good and bad in parts. That is a
Yeah,
six.
so I'll just justify my 9 on 10 for the first half and 4 on 10 for the second, and I can go a little lower in the second as well. But when I came out of the hall, right, and I think I texted you my reaction immediately after the first half. I said I was blown away by the first half, right? Whether it was the performances, whether it was the music, whether it was the building of conflict and escalation leading to that particular interval scene, I loved that whole part. And I immediately said, this was great. Second part, I was thoroughly disappointed. And because the second half was so drastically bad, it pulled down the first half for me as well. So overall, I said, what's the best way to rate this movie? Give the first half a 9, give the second half a 4, and
What
just
is
do
your
an average.
overall rating?
Yeah, exactly. That's what I said, right? Six and a half would be my overall rating.
Which is
Purely,
what is the six and a half for you?
Matlab,
Is it
then that
average?
means
Is it
you're
good?
rating the second half as 3 and then 9 plus 3 by 2.
yeah, something like that. 3 and 9, yeah, or maybe 8 and 4. Either way, like I'll give this movie a
Yeah,
probably
yeah.
6. Right? If I were a little generous, I would give this movie a 6.5. So that's again my take on what the movie itself was. But the moment I have come out of the hall and I've been looking at these comments that people are making that this movie is problematic, it's not a problematic movie, and that is what I'm trying to understand. Like, we've seen violence to an extreme in other films. We have seen psychopaths, serial killers, criminals doing all sorts of weird things. We
It's
have
the
seen.
portrayal, Subhash. It's not about seeing violence. It's the portrayal of that violence. And
Okay, so a lot of girls or men, either way, boys, men, girls, women, loved Jamie Lannister as a character, right? Because apparently he had an arc and he redeemed himself, despite being a child killer, despite being a sister, whatever that is you would call that, an incestuous person, uh, also indulging in rape. So that kind of a character is considered a great
I can give
character
you an
because
answer
of,
of Jamie Lannister, right?
yeah,
Jamie Lannister was based in complete fantasy. That is one, right? He
this is
was nowhere
fiction.
close
If
to
that was fantasy, this is fiction.
Yeah, but fantasy is like, fantasy is so far away from you that you can't relate it to real life at all. This one, it's shown in Delhi with it's too close to us. They've used religious connotations of Arjun Valley, etc. Right? So it is fiction, but it's not so far away from reality to be called a fantasy. Fortunately or unfortunately, that is one. And two, even within that fantasy, they've taken 3 4 5 seasons of a great character arc, great writing to kind of have that
Again, that's what
redemption.
I'm saying. Great character writing, great story, screenplay. Does that
Yeah.
justify the acts? And then why are those parts
Doesn't
then in
justify the
those
act.
movies celebrated? So Jamie Lannister, with all his good and evil,
Yeah.
nobody criticized those scenes. Nobody criticized why
But
was this put in the
no, Game of
picture.
Thrones was constantly called too violent and too sexual, even for people who liked it. But then it wasn't as problematic for the society because it was based in complete fantasy. Like the closest you could relate it to was like a medieval kingdom. even if it wasn't a fantasy, right? And
But
even that is like a
again, it
thousand
is showing
years.
human to human interaction, right? I'm just talking about the
But
human to human interaction.
it's
How
showing
does
a fantasy
a
world.
father treat a son? How does a brother treat a sister?
Correct.
All of
But
that
at
is
least
human to human interaction.
no, but Subed, the even if you remove the fantasy part of it, the dragons, the everything, right? You will bring it back to a medieval European kingdom, right? And when you show medieval, it's far enough removed from us that you could think, oh, 1,000 years ago this could have happened, right? So it is so far away. It is not related to your everyday life in any way, right? So that is why it is not problematic to the society, even though there is criticism about the unnecessary violence sometimes, unnecessary sexual scenes sometimes. It's still so far away from reality that it cannot be brought back and be related to societal problems in any way. Unlike Kabir Singh, because we are talking about the director now and not just Animal movie, and unlike Animal is slightly farther away from society compared to Kabir Singh. It's not far away enough, right? And because it's the same director, and the director himself is relating the two movies in interviews, connecting the two. It's the same producers. The music people are the same. It's the same team basically creating the same kind of character again, right? Just taking him to more extreme, right? And then splintering it with unnecessary sexual jokes. And the
Okay,
sexual jokes weren't offensive to me. They were just they were just bad. Like I was
sure. I
laughing
mean,
at the movie, except when they were trying to be funny. There was literally one moment when they were trying to be funny, and I also laughed, which was "Mera bhai gunga hai, mera bhai behra hai." That is it. That is in the last 5 minutes.
sure,
Yeah,
sure. Yeah, I'm not very sure about the intention. I guess that was intentional,
man.
trying to be funny.
If even
Yeah,
that
but
wasn't
here,
intentional, then I don't even know what.
no. So here is what I mean, and I think on broader aspects, I do agree with your assessment of the film, but I still am not aligned with that. This is a problematic movie. This movie should not have been made, and this movie is sending wrong messages because we've
No,
had
but those
violent
are not.
characters.
Right? So this movie, I'm never saying this movie should not have been made because people have the right to make whatever they want, right? But then also at the same time, you have to, be able to look at it logically and be able to criticize it and say that this is
Take an
problematic.
example. I just thought, just remembered, and I had made a note of this, but I forgot to bring it up. Take the movie American Psycho, Christian Bale one. Okay, Himanshu dropped off. Uh, that particular movie, it's shown extremely violent character, extremely.
That's based on a real character.
Yeah. So again, if that movie has been celebrated as, let me add Himanshu back. If that movie is celebrated as a great character, that could have been glorified, worshipped as a Patrick Bateman. Everybody wants to be like Patrick Bateman,
Right.
right?
It see there is again there is portrayal, right? If you're basing a movie on a real person, right? That real person has already been vilified enough in the media, been sent to jail. I don't remember what happened at the end. Sorry, my memory is not serving
It's
me
been
well
a
here.
while. Yeah, even I have seen that. Yeah.
Right? Did Patrick Bateman go to jail or get or die a violent death at the end or something, right? Or you know, there are real life examples of criminals who have escaped. You could be making movies about them as well, right? But there is a difference in the sense, and I will get back to my previous point, which is portrayal, right? Is the portrayal real or realistic? Or
American Psycho is as real can get, right? I
correct.
mean,
So it is real. Versus here, the portrayal is not even real, but trying to be real and glorifying at the same time. Problematic things, right? Like if you're loyal to me, you have to lick my boot. I can sleep with other people when I want because
that just shows
I'm
the
allowed to sleep with other
negativity
people
of the
because
character.
ओ मुझे
That
स्पाई
is
पकड़ना है तो आई कैन डू दैट हाँ तो अब तो हम उस पे आ गए ना कि वो कैरेक्टर प्रॉब्लमेटिक क्यों है पहले तो हम एग्जीक्यूशन पे थे एग्जीक्यूशन वाइज दिस पार्ट ऑफ द कैरेक्टर आई डोंट हैव अ प्रॉब्लम बट नाउ दैट वी आर coming to a wider narrative then wider narrative wise I have a problem with this also, right? Of course.
okay.
So
Himanshu, we haven't heard from you in a while. What is your
So,
take?
see, I think if such characters should exist, I mean, should there be, like a realistic angle to the end, or the director's arrogance post release of the movie should be a little subdued about what the character is. I don't think so. I mean, it is what it is.
Should they not?
And
Should they
I
not
mean,
say that? Should they not have the narrative that this is a psychopath instead of this is an alpha?
still with see, there are many reviews which is like he's a psychopath, and this is a disease for the society. So matlab, the way you are kind of concluding, the general sentiment is that people are saying that okay, this is what an alpha stands for, and if you are getting triggered, you are a sensitive person, right? And you're not agreeing with that kind of a this thing. ठीक है, some of them are saying we don't have data and the time to have a research and polls etc on this, but ठीक है, that will happen. What I would say is, would I watch the movie, and especially with 1 hour 50 minutes of hearing from you what it is, etc. I don't like such patchy, discontinuous. What kind of movies are really inspiring or interesting for me. Those are the oi lucky lucky types, and very realistic, very next door stories. So yes, I would not. Should it be? Could it be? I don't get into that. I mean, everybody can make any movie. What would be interesting, and what I would want to hear from you guys would be: would another animal work?
Yeah.
Will people line up
Neeraj?
again for such a character in some other twisted manner? Ki is bar maa se Bahubali was, they had some mom and son problem with some power dynamics of an
No,
entire
but then,
kingdom, right?
yeah,
So that is my question, that will it work? In my view, I think people
for
will not
sure.
give it a pass. If Sandeep
No, no, no.
Vanga again comes up with a similar story, which I can see in his filmography, there is a 25 release. If it is similar, if it is
I
still
there is
With Prabhas, I
sprinkled
think
with,
that is with
a sequel
Prabhas.
to this only.
huh? Sorry,
There's a sequel to this planned coming out in 2025.
my prediction, and we can regroup again. It will
No, so
not
I
work.
think I think
Again,
just from a
with dick
purely
measuring jokes and all, it will not work. So that's my
filmography thing.
question again to both of you. Will it work? Will something like this animal, or whatever, primate or anything like this will work?
No, so
Um,
two things right here. One is I think Vanga's next couple of films are with Prabhas and I think Allu Arjun. So
hmm,
Animal sequel is not happening at least in the next couple of years for sure. Probably
okay.
even 3 4 years, right? He takes at least couple of years to make a movie. So those Prabhas and Allu Arjun movies will be next. After which he might or might not do an Animal sequel. And if he doesn't do an
See, I
Animal
mean,
sequel, then
what
it's
I'm trying to say is that, see, Bhansali creates a universe. Ki, bhaiya, my set will be unapologetically huge. And my sarees will be this, my curtains will be there. Karan Johar does the same, similar. That I will be unrealistic. कि कभी खुशी कभी गम में चांदनी चौक में मेरे को स्कॉटलैंड का कैसल दिखाना है as a house, so I will show that. If now my point being कि if Sandeep, this guy is trying to say कि this is my universe and all my
I
movies
think
will have
he's
a trademark
established.
like
Yeah,
this, I think his next one will be a flop, is what I'm saying.
I
No,
don't
but
agree with.
sequel to the
I don't
same
agree
movie, it
because
will make money because
no, no, not the same movie. I'm saying he's
No, no,
now
same as in
clearly
like why,
established.
that same signature style of कि भैया
He's
ये होगा and dick measuring joke होंगे, and then if you
it could be
have
slightly
this,
different. So one thing I agree with Subed on is that this movie is pretty different from Kabir Singh in that sense. So for people
yeah,
who would
absolutely,
have loved
absolutely.
and enjoyed the movie, they would have found it very different. People who are looking at the deeper or the wider narratives, they are seeing the
Yeah.
similarity. So
I
it
believe
could
he
work.
has created his own style uh, by now. Three movies, like effectively two movies.
Two
I think
movies, yeah.
two movies. I think he's create like one was a remake. So anyway, two movies. I think he has created his style. He has acquired, I would say, a loyal fan base by now with two movies. People who would want to go and see the same kind of violence, that this movie at least provides. Now, whether that is going to make it a hit or not, I don't know. depends on the overall execution. While Animal's execution in this case was not up to the mark, I would still say it works on whatever
It works. Ah,
levels of
yeah, you are right.
it
It works.
works.
It
It
has been
works
working with Jawan and Pathan and Tigers
exactly,
of
and I
you know.
don't think Animal, except like we can remove the problematic elements of his aside. I don't think it's too bad compared to the likes of a Pathan or a Jawan. Even those movies are disoriented. Those movies have fantastical jumps, no
And your
logical
standards are
conclusion.
really low, right? If you're asking.
Yeah, so I'm
But
saying if Pathan Jawan kind of movies can do
so
well,
so let's
So,
get
but
into
like the
another
question
point
coming
is
back to it, if do you
standards of
think
Indian cinema. Sorry. Yeah,
no,
please
no,
go ahead.
I'm saying, do you think, and because I think we can wrap up in next five and make it a 2 hour thing for people to whoever it is. I don't know any if anybody is still there. So, or you can edit it later and put it in your
we'll
channel.
see. We'll see what we do with it. Yeah.
So, yeah, so I think I don't think so. The next one will work. Uh, could Anurag Kashyap would have made another the third gangs? He anyway made the two together. Mirathia Gangster was a poor attempt by Zishan. No one even knows about it. You need to try, and art is, I think, is like that. Keep trying
No,
different
but
things, and I think that
only when it's real art, Himanshu. This is a formula based masala movie. I think they'll keep
exactly.
working.
So I think this formula will
Been
fail.
working for 10 years,
These
they will keep
guys,
working for a while.
this guy's formula will fail. I think somebody tried to take Prabhas in a Adi Purush and thought that it will work. It did not. I think similar mistake is bound to happen if he continues with the same.
No, but then if he's established his style, that this is what his style of movies will be, I
Yeah.
think he will find a loyal audience.
Yeah, because
You don't know. I mean, that's
his
that's the
narrative is
great thing
polarizing
about
enough.
audience.
People,
Yeah.
even if they don't like it, there will be people who don't like it and they will still go and watch it and just to be able to support it, etc. So it will make money. The next movie will definitely make money. I have no doubt.
Sure. Yeah, I think.
If
Sorry,
it
Neeraj, you had
was
one point.
an actor, like someone
Neeraj,
as big as or bigger than Ranbir Kapoor.
I think Vanga has said in an interview that he wants to do a movie with Shah Rukh Khan. Now, whether Shah Rukh Khan will do a movie with Vanga is a different thing.
Yeah,
But
he will never. I
sorry,
think.
Neeraj, you were saying about overall benchmark of Indian cinema. What was that?
I
I
mean,
didn't connect.
if you're having to compare the biggest movies to I mean, on one part, on the one hand, you compare it to what a lot of us believe is the best movie made in the last 20, 30, 40 years, which is Gangs of Wasseypur, right? And on the other hand, you compare it to Pathan or a Jawan, right? So there have to be like either, artistic benchmarks or cinematic,
Yeah,
the box
commercial.
office benchmarks. If you're comparing box office wise, then there's no point even talking about, if the story was good or not, etc.
Yeah.
Because most of those movies are not good that way. But if you're trying to actually ascertain whether the movie was well made, the dialogue was good, all of those things about filmmaking, and don't compare it to a Pathan or Jawan, right? And that is one of the problems I have with Animal, that people are saying it's a great movie, right? When we were discussing on that WhatsApp chat, our friend said it's a cinematic experience, right? I'm sorry, please don't equate those two things.
I
Say
think we
fine.
are missing an agitated Sumanta here who would have probably, you know, gotten
Yeah,
his own.
but I haven't heard any logical points. Only like feelings, like oh my god, what an experience. I was high, but like what an
So I
experience.
mean, that's the thing. Now with experience, I was like, भैया मेरे को experience हो गया मैं गया
हाँ, तो
मैं
वो ठीक है, वो मसाला मूवी
वही.
है फिर. Don't compare it to, if you don't have any logical
Hmm.
points, then it's fine. It's subjective, and of course, it's making money, so you can just keep pointing to that.
Okay, so before we close, Neeraj, your final rating of Animal.
So honestly, when I came back from the movie, I uh, I wanted to give it zero on certain aspects, but IMDb doesn't allow a zero rating, right? So I gave it a one, and one is because for me it was not a movie. It was just a used and abused formula, right? If I had to give it, rating on other aspects, on music, etc., I think I would do that separately on a music platform. But for when I go to IMDb, I want, reviews that are based in, what is the story, the screenplay, the direction, the performance, the dialogue, right? I felt out of the three, four, five main things, two or three of them were completely missing, and the other two or three were shambolic at best, right? So I can't give it more than a one rating because the movie had lost me right in the beginning. It tried to get me back with a couple of action sequences, but then all those action sequences did was, made me go out, get some tissue paper, stuff it into my ears because they were loud, but there was nothing new or great about them for me, in my opinion. But it did make me want to understand कि भाई ऐसा क्या हो गया इसके साथ, कैरेक्टर के साथ. And then I was waiting like this in the entire second half कि बताओ यार क्या हुआ है. And they
Yeah,
just didn't do it. They just never got to it, right? कि
yeah.
चलो
I
कुछ
think
तो जस्टिफाई करोगे ताकि इतना चल रही है मूवी, रणबीर कपूर ने किया है, कुछ तो बताओगे ना. कबीर सिंह में बता रहे थे कि हाँ क्यों हो रहा है, ठीक है, मतलब प्रॉब्लमेटिक था, बट एग्जीक्यूशन में कुछ तो था ना कि देयर इज अ वाई that they're trying to show, even if they're not showing it well, right? This time they just gave up. They just did not try to even show it. And I was like, dude, what happened to the Papa Meri Jaan? What जो ट्रेलर में था वो कहाँ है? जब मूवी खत्म हो गई ना, at the end they're showing those scenes because they just wanted to show a couple of good scenes with, good powerful acting that they could put in the trailers. That was not the time. I mean, it's just poor overall. I There might be worse movies, but I don't think I've seen worse. So that's why I give it
final rating.
yeah, one for me is the lowest rating because for me, I don't think I've ever seen a worse movie. Uh, because I generally get out of those movies or I don't go for them, right? So I don't rate those movies. So if I have to rate this one,
Okay,
it's
so this is the worst film that you have seen.
I do I might have seen a couple of worse movies, but then I see those movies knowing that they're bad movies and I'm watching them to like laugh at them, right?
Okay, fair, fair.
Movies like
Yeah,
a
so
like a
bad it is good kind.
yeah, like a Gunda or a Hum Saath Saath Hain, right? Uh, or one of those movies, right? You would watch to laugh
All
at
right.
the movie with them.
I think when I started the review, I think I started with 9 and 4 or 9 and 3 kind of a thing, or 8 and 4. I would probably, listening to Neeraj, I think Neeraj would have convinced me to lower my number by maybe 1 point.
Do that.
I'll still give the movie a 5, or I will not give it a 6 anymore. I'll probably give it a 5. I think for me the first half was great, right? I cannot deny that the experience that I have or had of going through that whole journey of the character and how it escalated to that interval scene, I loved it till there. Second half was very, very disappointing. I've said this before. So if they had ended the movie just with that interval scene, great for me. But then they went into that whole second half, which did not justify the first half. So yeah, I
But
mean,
do
probably
you?
give it a
I
five.
have I have one question before we end, right? Do you
Huh.
feel like your first half rating, if you're able to, kind of separate it, it's hard to separate it, is because of the scene at the end of the first half, or because of the entire? Because the first half was like a movie length in itself. It was almost 2 hours, right?
2 hours. Yeah, it was exactly 2 hours. Yeah, I remember.
Right.
I
So
started. Yeah,
you
exactly two
and you love
hours.
action movies. You love a John Wick, right? I know that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So was it because of that supposedly great action scene at the end that your entire feelings were turned about the rest of the shit first half, or was it the entire first half that you liked? Because it was pretty disconnected from the rest of the first half, to be honest.
Yeah, because
That
first
actually
half, I mean,
there is no build up.
I would say the first half did go back and forth in timelines.
There was no build up of a villain or someone having a huge amount of power to be able to attack them like this. There was nothing like
Right,
that.
right, right. No, I think, and I thought that that is what they would go into in the second half, and there'll be escalation
Yeah.
of that thing. I think the first half did jump around timelines, like middle-aged Ranbir, a young adult Ranbir, a child Ranbir, and some sequences are shown out of order. Like they show the killing of the brother-in-law, and then they come back and justify why he killed the brother-in-law later. So I would say, to an extent, maybe that I loved that interval sequence a lot. I mean, it was a perfect crescendo culmination climax uh, to that, but I would not say that it's completely based on that. I think first half in itself is a self-contained movie, not complete, but it's a self-contained movie which I could have said, okay, this is fairly good, and I was expecting more in the second. So, yeah, I mean, maybe 9 to start off it was too much, but I would still say first half. I'll stand by my rating that, not the rating, but I'll stand by my view that the first half was great for me. Maybe 9 was an overreach, but yeah, second half was fairly disappointing, and that I didn't enjoy at all. So yeah, and obviously, I think we should do the next review whenever we do, depending on how we debrief on this. Maybe we should do Barbie. I have to see that movie. I haven't seen Barbie
I'll
yet.
have to watch it again, but I remember liking it.
I will see that because I have heard again very, very polarizing views about Barbie. People who loved it, they are some one kind. The people who didn't go for it or didn't like it are another kind. Would love to do that. But I mean, thank you so much, guys, for joining this session. Uh, Great talking to you guys, and we don't see each other very
Yeah.
often, but it's great to see each other across the screen. Thanks, Neeraj. Thanks, Himanshu, and thanks for the people who
Thanks.
stuck
Thanks
around
everyone
in
who's been
this
Thanks.
watching this, and go and watch.
2 hour long view. All right, cool.
Yeah.
Then we'll end the stream here. See you guys. Bye.